Hey guys, no, no. It's not a movie hall. It's not a television show.
Students, please sit down.
Dear participants, please kindly be seated. Others, please make everybody. Please keep your mobile phones in silent mode. Use our first keynote speaker, Mr. Vijeta Shastri, Executive Director, Dexter Capital. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Across various sectors and roles, a few being hospitality operations, retail, customer-facing roles, co-working spaces, open innovation, and global sales. Sir has worked in multiple cities and countries and maintained strong relationships across various sectors and communities. Based in Bengaluru, Sir is active in the startup ecosystem and is ever ready to engage with people from the innovation community. He is voluntarily associated himself with TIE Bangalore for startup programs and Head Start Network Foundation to support early stage founders. Now, with utmost respect and honor, I call upon Mr. Vijeta Shastri to deliver his keynote address. Please.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm assuming I'm loud and clear. Yes, right. So listen, ladies and gentlemen, I am so privileged and honored to be here, and I'm a bit nervous as well. Do I have reason to be nervous?
No.
Sure? Okay, great, fantastic. So I'm thankful to all of you. It's a full house, and I see a few familiar faces. So let me just have a quick round of hands here, right? Any of you folks are interning or volunteering, say with your family business or a friend's business or some associations or organizations? Okay, great, phenomenal. And how's the experience been?
Amazing.
Super awesome. Okay, fantastic. So what we will do now is that we should have some energy in the room, right? Otherwise, it's going to be very boring. I know you guys are not going to like it to just sit here and doing nothing else. So a round of applause for all these folks who are organizing this. Okay? And please sit down. Don't because your mobile phones, all that kind of work, right? It's not easy, but I guess you got to do this, right? It's building the community, building the ecosystem. Second question that I have for you folks is that how are you all networking and how are you all going to stay in touch with each other beyond college? Instagram. Okay. What else? WhatsApp. Fantastic. And phone calls. Okay. LinkedIn. Do you guys get time off from college at least on Sunday, or your professors make sure that you get a lot of assignments and really don't look at it like that. So a lot of work, assignments. It's enjoyable. No regrets being here. Pakka. I only heard it from 8 or 10 voices. Oh, come on, it can't be that bad. Okay, so how are you going to make this life of this journey, right? And think of it like you imagine that you're a startup, entrepreneurs, you're going to be running your own business, or you're going to be working more and more for startups, etc. How are you going to make this life of yours in these 2 years that you're in this college more enjoyable? Nothing. I'm not talking about the parties, but I'm talking about that 8 hours. How many hours do you spend in college?
4 hours.
4 hours. That's it. You're lucky, man. But you also spend time traveling, don't you? How many guys or how many of you will take more than an hour to come to college? Great. So what are you doing at 1 hour? Listening to songs. Okay, fantastic. What else? Okay, smart. Sorry, what did you say? Podcast. So tell us, can you give me some examples of podcasts? Okay. Beer biceps. Yeah, I love beer biceps. Okay. What else? Sorry. Okay. Okay. What else? Do you all read articles, say from McKinsey, Harvard Business Review, Economic Times? Your story. Think about it, okay? Because this will help you in the future as well. So now we'll be wondering, what am I doing here and what am I talking about? So, and I'm supposed to be delivering a keynote. So let me start with my keynote by first saying thank you once again very, very much to Mr. Vineet and team for inviting me here. I'm so honored to be here once again. And next question I have for you is, what do you hope to get in this next half an hour, 45 minutes? Knowledge, not what? Attendance. Someone said attendance, very smart. But I think they're not giving attendance. Yeah, they are giving. Okay, fine. Negotiate, huh? Negotiate hard. Okay, you all should go back and say like, hey, I sat for 1 hour. Okay. What else you hope to learn from this interaction? Nothing. Okay, little bit. Let. I want to keep this interactive. See, as I said, this is my number. This is my email IDs. And I'm more than happy to catch up with you guys and stay in touch. All right. So can I move forward?
Yes, sir.
All right, great. So this is just a very quick thing. You all should learn about angel investing, what happens, value creation, wealth creation, why do people invest in companies, why do they want to become part of companies. So this is what we do. I mean, this is actually maybe a 10 days old data because they're just getting some more people onboarded. But we invest in angel. We, as an angel network, we have done more than 25 investments in the last few years. And you'll see announcements coming at least 1 or 2 per month. Okay. We look for entrepreneurs. We look for, people who are really hustlers, want to grow, are determined to expand and make a name for themselves and for the organization. Okay. Right. So we are talking about how many of you are interning or want your own startups or set up your own companies? Wow. You guys are amazing. So where is the source of money? That's money. Yeah? Giving it back with interest, soft loans, threats are coming, or it's all okay? And what is how many of you have taken money from family, friends, and given collateral? Imagine, just imagine if you give collateral. I was just talking to Vineet sir and saying that a real entrepreneur, they actually commit say a payment today, and then they scramble to make sure that they collect money to make sure that their payment or whatever doesn't bounce. Okay, so is it an easy life for you folks? Are you enjoying the journey? Challenges, depression, mistakes,
A lot.
and you may be questioning yourself, what the hell am I doing? Okay, don't worry, it's all part of the game. No, yesterday I was spending some time with the multiple founders across sessions, virtual as well as physical, and this is always coming on the self-doubt. There is self-doubt. Don't worry. Okay, but be aware of the self-doubt. Aware that at times you're feeling your energy levels going down. You're struggling to maybe get business or to build your product. It's all part of the game. All right. So give a loud cheer to yourselves first. Now I see that I'm the coordinator in the camp session. Okay, so look, this presentation and this inputs, knowledge, resources is going to be made available to you all. So don't worry about it. But remember that it's about when you talk about funding or you want to start your own venture or you want to do something, you need to take money from people. You need money. Okay, without money, it's very difficult. Okay, so it could be your money, it could be from friends, it could be from family, and be careful. No, like when you take from friends, they will sometimes not. Any of you guys have borrowed from friends to do some business, or any of you guys have got say 2 or 3 of you are together and doing something together, or all of you are alone. Alone. It's an emotionally very tough journey to be alone. Okay, physically and emotionally, it's very, very draining. So finding, that's why I asked you, what do you do? How do you spend time? When you talk to each other, say in the canteen or in the cafeteria, what do you do? What do you talk about? Movies? Very important. You talk about podcasts, books. What are the books that you guys read? Oh, I think that message is directed to some other people in the room. Okay, not to me. So what else do you all read? Okay, in your textbook, what do you all like reading? What makes you all want to read that information, not just for the exam, but because it's interesting? Give me some examples. Come on, it can't be that bad.
Psychology of money.
Psychology of money, right? Great book. Right? Fantastic. It's actually those. Have you all read about? You heard about that book? Yeah, please, those who will not, Psychology of Money, you all must look it up. And the growth hack is, you can't read it or you can't find it or borrow it or whatever. At least go to YouTube or something and take the abstract, like 10 lessons from Psychology of Money or something like that. Okay, find it out. But it's a really beautiful book. What are the other books that you folks read about? Sorry, Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki. Okay, great. One of the old books, but a fantastic book even now.
The Secret.
Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Then
48 Laws of Power.
this man is smart. 4-hour work week. It's a misnomer. Okay. There is no 4-hour work week, but that's okay. It's good to read. All right. Yeah, that's a great book. Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. I would also recommend a couple of other books for you all, or rather, when I say book, get the essence of that knowledge, right? There's something called deep work. I don't know if you guys have heard about it. It's written by a gentleman called Carl Newport. Right. So you have to balance your studies. You have to balance your, you see, this today's world, you have to read and research a lot. So how do you do that with a limited amount of time, with your personal interest, family interests, everything that you have? Deep Work is a great book. Okay. And also I would recommend that those who have not read this Rich Dad Poor Dad, get the essence of it. Okay. This is not to say that, if you're not doing a business, you're a bad person or a stupid person. It does not say that. Understand the habits, understand the thinking, the processes. All right. And one more thing is, as you all grow in the thing, try to find out about grants. Very important, right? It's grants is when you're not giving away equity. You're not giving any interest. You're not giving any collateral. Very tough to get, but it's an art to learn how to write for grants. Okay. So I'm going to move a little bit quicker so that we can have more questions. There is crowdfunding. There is Angel Investor Network. We are, of course, a network, but there are others also, right? Just research it. Please go through it. It will help you a lot. This is also something for you. I volunteer with almost all these places. NASCOM, I was working there, plus I volunteer with Kerala Startup Mission. I'm in touch with the Tamil Nadu folks. I'm in touch with, of course, C Camp and the government of Karnataka. How many of you guys have been for any government of Karnataka programs or Bangalore Tech Summit or Thai Bangalore programs, NASCOM programs? Have you gone anywhere? By the way, just to cater to student communities, a lot of these events are happening on Saturdays and Sundays. So that, because then you should not, the attendance should not be compromised on. So this is being made specifically to cater to you youngsters. So take advantage of it. All right. Some resources that I'm sharing, because you should look up what Startup India does. You should understand about all these various schemes, programs, and apply for all these programs. Become volunteers there, because you all will learn like this. The speed and curve of getting a good mentor by becoming part of all this will really help you a lot. All right. Now I take a small gap here. Okay. For 5 seconds, what else would you like to hear from me? What can we interact on? What will make it interesting for you? I'm like a founder and a startup who wants to sell his, conversational skills and knowledge skills. Anyone? Did there come in any expectation? Yeah, just shout it out.
What are the qualities of a great founder?
Okay, fantastic. Then any other questions? How to invest in what? Stock market. Okay, great.
First experience with startup.
So how many of you have put into the LIC IPO, Paytm IPO, Zomato IPO? Happy? Lost, no? So please talk to him later. Okay. Yeah, look, it's a dangerous game, man. No one really understands. And but what I would say, start smaller. Look, very honestly, mutual funds and all that kind of stuff is better. And develop from families, but as you grow older and all, you have to have health insurance. So invest in that. And you know what is the best investment? Invest in yourself and your education. In hindsight, I'm saying this. I used to study much lesser when I was in college. I've done my hotel management. So it was more of practical work. And we had a lot of subjects and textbooks, but we didn't have to study too much because it was more practical. But now I'm assuming you'll have to study a lot. So 4 hours of college, how many hours of reading do you all do per day or per week? Why is so much of no, studies and beyond? Even novels are okay. Okay, if you all read some other novels, you all can read a Dan Brown or so many beautiful Indian authors are there also, right? So it's okay. What are the books that interest you? When you want to take a break from studies, what do you like to read? Okay, Almanac of Ravi, Naval Ravikant. How many of you guys have heard of Naval Ravikant? Great person to follow. He's done Product Hunt. He's done Angel List. How many of you guys have gone through Angel List? Are you a part of any syndicates on there? Okay, so Angel List is basically a syndicate for investors, angel investors. So there is Lex Venture and there is also, as I said, Angel List. Please look this up. This will be very useful. So you want to learn about stock market and investing, moneycontrol.com, you go through it. Equitymaster.com. Okay, these are two websites. You talk about mutual funds, stocks, and also they give very good insight about how you can lose money in the stock market. So do not lose too much money. When you're putting in money, whether it's in a startup or in a stock market, it should not be that kangal, go for broke. I'm taking risks. You take calculated risks. So in a startup also, you take calculated risks. So you should not do anything that will, cost you and get you into deep trouble. All right. So these are just resources that are going to be made available to you all. This is something else also. Also remember, any of you guys have done any volunteering or internship for NGOs? Which ones? Loud, just shout it out. Okay, fantastic. Have you guys heard of Teach for India? Look it up. Okay, it's Teach for India. It's a beautiful program. It's a fellowship where you can get a lot of fantastic networking also, but it actually helps you to give back to the community. Okay, but here, of course, since we're talking about funding, remember that a lot of CSR funds. What does CSR stand for? Yes, so that's also funds that is available because thanks to the laws that have been made. So remember that this is also there, but I'm also putting that emphasis on own money. Remember in my previous slide also I said own money is the best money. Okay, whether you take it from a dad or mother or uncle or whatever, it's your own money. Okay, now let's talk about this. Any of you folks are doing any of these things? Anywhere? Yeah. So which are the organizations you are interning, volunteering, catching up with or meeting? Sorry? Okay. How's the experience been? Are you getting time to talk to founders or the CXO leaders? Are you shadowing them? Also remember, you should work with the chief of staff of the CEO of some of these organizations because they are the ones who actually understand the larger game. How many of you are interested into understanding about marketing and sales? How many of you have actually gone out on the streets or in your complexes or whatever and tried to sell a product or service? So I see very, very few hands. How was your experience? Seriously? No. People say no to you. They slam the door on you. If they see you coming, they say, oh my God, and they run away. Yeah, that also happens. Listen, it's all part of the game. Okay, it's all part of the, all right. What else? What are your experiences when you are volunteering or interning? Bad experiences. Any terrible experiences? Yeah, whatever. Someone wants to just talk about that. Don't be shy. It's okay. We are all friends out here. We're learning from each other and don't feel embarrassed also. Learn from that mistake, learn from that experience. And okay, yesterday I was talking to some folks about what happens that, if there's an investor speaking and there are 50 founders and then that poor investor wants to, go away or whatever it is and they're trapped because there are 50 people who are going to pound them and say like, I want questions, see my app, I want to demo, I want to show you my website. And then, the phone is rendering while it's opening and they want to run away. All these things happen all the time. Okay. Why I'm talking about this is you will be in both shoes. Today you all are where you all are. Tomorrow you all could be here. You all may be talking. You all may be working for a VC firm or investment bank or someone, or a startup founder, etc., or an angel investment company. Then what happens? How do you behave? How do you react? What is the research work? I'm really keen to know this. What do you all read? What do you all research work? What is it that holds your interest? If any of you have read some articles recently in yourstory.com or Inc42 or Economic Times around startups, innovation, funding, what holds your attention? Please tell me you all read it. Yeah, please go ahead. Don't have to raise your hand.
Well, I was very fascinated by how Nitin Kamath started his company and he made Zerodha profitable, but Kunal after raising a lot of capital, he lost. So that was the
okay. So two things we should remember here, right? Is it the Kamath brothers or is it one person? It's Kamath brothers. Plus, there's one of the Kamath brothers has a wife who's also working. So it's a team. Okay, no one does it alone. That's why I was asking you all again, right? You are alone, or you'll have co-founders, or you'll build a team. Have you guys built a volunteer and intern network? It's very surprising. Some of the colleges I go to and I ask them, okay, do you all do this? Do you all do this? They say, yes, sir, my interns are doing it. I said, wait, you have interns? I said, wow, that's cool, man. It's really cool. So that's a build a community and network. So that's the first thing, right? Nitin Kamath or the Kamath brothers and whatever, they have done this because they really understand the game. And they want to, that's why they didn't need to take money. They built a platform. So it's not that they didn't have money or whatever, right? They put in their own money. They have people who have backed them up. But it's not, there's no investor or VC or whatever that has put in money. Now, remember about Kunal Shah also that he's a well-known name. What was his previous company where he got a
Free charge.
yeah, he got a big exit from there. So he's considered to be someone who's capable of building massive companies, correct? And he's very articulate. Have you all heard about WeWork?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Adam Newman. So what happened to WeWork?
He ruined SoftBank.
No comment. I don't want to comment on that. But you know what happened, right? WeWork. It was evaluated at 45 billion. But what is the latest news about him? 15 days back in here.
He has opened close.
It's valued $1 billion.
Yeah, that's small amount, a big amount. Is the product ready? Does even know what he's going to be doing? We don't know, but he's got money. So it's also about that. Why I'm saying is the charisma that some founders bring in, their skill sets to negotiate and sell. Like someone was saying, are we getting attendance? Are we getting this? Are we getting that? So that works, right? So when you're going to negotiate, any of you guys are going to in the next 1 year maybe appear for interviews in your for a corporate career? Yeah. Have you all made a wish list of which company you all want to join? And what kind of jobs you want there? Are you all preparing for what kind of questions will come to you? And there will be salary negotiations, negotiations for perk. Which city I want to, how many of you want to go out of Bangalore and work? 5 hands, tell the truth. And where you want to go work? Which city? How many of you are not from Bangalore? Your hometown is something else. Not from Bangalore. What about it? Why? Wow. Now this is something else. Huh? But you all want to work in Bangalore. You all want to work in HSR layout. Come on. So one of the communities that I run is called HICO. Okay, HIKO. So what do you think H stands for? HSR. What does I stand for?
Indranagar.
KO.
Kormangala.
The HICO club, right? Because we say that all the founders are mostly from these areas. Of course, people from MG Road and all will say like, even I'm from there, but that's not the point. The point is the Bangalore has amazing communities, right? So how many of you have actually gone to some of these startup offices? Which ones?
Address advisors.
Sorry?
Address advisors.
Okay, and?
That's all.
That's it.
All right. See, because a lot of these activities and community events that happen on Saturday, Sunday are being actually hosted and done by the Series A, Series B founders. So recently, have you heard of Dukan?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
What does he do?
Uh,
Yeah, opening a store, right? So if you have any product or you have your homegrown store, whatever, they help you to raise a beautiful storefront, virtual storefront, right? So those guys have raised Series B, Series C, and they're from the smaller towns, IITs, etc., etc. So that's why I'm asking you all again. What are the communities that you are building? How are you keeping in touch? How are you exchanging notes beyond college, beyond the 4 hours or whatever time you spend here? I still can't believe it's just 4 hours. So we're being too kind to them. We had to spend 8-9 hours in college, all right? You have to go for a compulsory internship. Okay, great. So that's where it compensates. Good. So happy with the internship? Louder?
Yes, sir.
So did you? But do you all do it on your own, or you're totally rely on the professors, or do you all hustle, or do you all find someone who can tell you yes, we can? And how many are getting paid for it? That feels good.
Yes.
Of course, it feels good. All right, great, fantastic. So now look, we're talking about startups, ecosystem, and everything. Founders, how many are looking to raise money? Just 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. How much? 5 lakhs, 10 lakhs, 1 crore, 1 million. Okay, so this is from the investor perspective, right? It's not that I have a problem to solve, I have a solution, or I am a great founder, great team, whatever, right? What does the investor want? Think about that. Like, what does the investor want according to you? Okay, they want an exit, right? When you say that, means they want a good exit later on. So how are you going to deliver that? How are you going to convince them that you're the right persons, the right team, with the right thinking and the right skill sets to deliver a profit or what you call as an exit? Okay, so that's what it's all about. And I just wanted to just spend a little bit 10 seconds more to look at this. Well, this is important, right? You have to understand from the investor perspective, whether it's your own money, also you have to look at that. You don't want to just burn your money, right? You want to get some returns on that money. If you're taken from your parents, you have to give it back to them, or at least make them feel that you're not squandered it. Okay, so this question that you are asking right now, like how does a startup founder raise money? What does the investor look for it? So these are some of the things that the investor would look at. It's just a small thing. It's also about negotiation. It's also about what market you're in, what is the skill sets that you bring in, etc., etc. This is again a suggestion. Yes, ma'am. See, sir, as bluntly I'm telling you, evaluation is about once the money hits your account. So there are two terms. You have to understand what is free money, and then you understand what is post money, right? So it's all about ability to negotiate. The founders are brilliant storytellers. Brilliant, as in, I mean, they can mesmerize you. Okay, and later on when you do the facts and figures, you say, yeah, that's exactly. They're brilliant storytellers. They sell a vision. They sell it. We are capable, and even the investor knows that they may lose money. Okay, so I would also like to kind of give a caveat. See, remember, a lot of these VCs are not. It's not their money. It is someone else has given the money. You run it. An angel investor, even if they're putting 5 lakhs, 2 lakhs, or your parents are putting in money, is their personal money. So there's a big difference in outlook and thinking and risk ability and whether they care or not, etc., etc. But this evaluations game, we can keep talking about it. It doesn't matter. What matters is, can you as a founder convince? Good for you. And if you as an investor are going to lose money and you're still going to hold a job and you're not going to get beaten up by your people who are putting up money, good for you. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. We should not, as someone was asking about how did a credit guy, yes, he has credibility with the investors. So what is the skill set that they bring in? What is the research work they do? What is the USP that they have? How good is their team? Now, do not forget that, okay, while it's only the headlines will come only because of a few of these founders, there's a team. There's an amazing team of folks who are out there. Yes, you're also reading a lot of news, I'm sure, about how you're reading and how people are leaving companies, right? Zomato, this, that, layoffs are happening, people are starting up on their own. This is part of the game. But that click that is there, right? The IIMs and IITs and ISBs and even here, Jain University, GITO. How many of you guys have heard of GITO? You're a part of it or you've gone for any events, showcases anytime? You all should. If you have heard of it and you're from that community, please, they're the most amazing and most savvy investors. So spend time with them. This is a template, but I want to just go back to the, I hope this is like, you can see this, right? The elevator pitch, the memory hooks. Yeah, elevator pitch. You all practice this elevator pitch. So who can give me a 30-second elevator pitch? And if you want, come out here. Come. Whoever wants to come. See, they want you to come here. Don't waste time. Come, you're coming. Come now. You think he wants to hide? He wants to hide himself. No? But listen, it's an open. We're all friends here. Okay, we're family, and you have to get rid of this fear factor, right? One day you have to go out and pitch. So this is your elevator pitch. Your one pager. So Vinita, we were talking about that, right? They should have the one pager. They must have a more elongated pitch. These are some of the things that you have to talk about, right? Your business models. And also what you want. It's not just about money. Okay, trust me on this. This is something that I also do very, personally, I'm very much involved in that. How can we help the founders? How can we help them to build networks and knowledge? And how can we help them to go out into the markets? How can we find them more clients? How can they do testing of their product, etc., etc., etc. So there are many things that we can enable, and we must do this. Okay. The next question that I want is, all of you who are startups, who are your mentors? Do you all have mentors? What kind of mentors? Did you choose them? Was it trust upon you? Is it your family, your friends? Who are these guys? Who are these people?
Family, friends.
Family and friends. Right?
Family
But what is the expertise? Why have they been chosen to be your mentors?
They've run multiple successful business organizations.
Okay, so you've chosen them and they've chosen to spend time with you.
Yes.
You are prepared for a mentor session. So if you're going for pitching to say a VC, you're preparing, right? So even for the people who are your advisors and mentors, please prepare. Right? What exactly do you want? If you have 1 hour with them, what do you want to gain from them? Okay. Business model, I'm sure you'll have understood this. Lean startup. The principles of lean startup you guys know about. The business model canvas. Have you heard about that? So just look this up, okay? These are some very critical things, very simple, very basic, but useful tools for you all to really prepare your mind. Team, I'm coming to that. Are you alone, still alone? How are you going to build a team? Can you do everything on your own? How many of you are coders? Crazy, right? And imagine you're building a tech platform. Why should anyone help you? You all know the salaries that coders and programmers are having right now, right? It's insane. So if you don't have coding skills, how exactly are you going to build a platform or an app or a website, whatever it is? Think about that. Hire and pay them. And pay them or for free. So then you have to get lots of funding. And what if they are, you will have heard of this terminology called moonlighting? Trust me, everyone is moonlighting, man. They're all moonlighting. They do not want to come to office. But these are the challenges you will face in your journey of a startup founder. How are you going to tackle that? Are you aware of this? Is what the fundamental question that I'm asking you. What could be the challenges you're going to face? Well, don't understand technology unless you'll have a way to get this done through some other way. Think about it. Okay, I'm not trying to scare you all, but it's very important to remember this. Good to go. Take 10 seconds to go through this. See, this is like if you're like, I was talking about this, that you're asked mentoring. From whom? Why do you want the mentoring? What are the questions that you will ask? Okay. Tech support, very critical, especially if you all are from a, you all are not technology people. It's very, very tough to get technology support. Funding, what do you do with it? Team. Again, it comes to team. You can't do it alone. It's a very lonely journey. So as someone, think about this, right? Again, it may not be today's thought process, but you're at a people are going to get into entrepreneurship, you want to build your own startups. Who are your team? You have to start identifying them and building rapport now. Okay. Any questions on this? Because this is something important. If you're interacting with folks, you're maybe going to be running your family offices or business tomorrow. You have to raise external funding, right? What are the things that will come to your mind? So all these things, there is full silence in the room. It scares me. Okay. Okay, let's talk about the headlines. That's what I'm asking, right? What are you all reading? What are the hot headlines today in the startup world or in the ecosystem or innovation? What's happening? Even on your mobile phones, what do you all read? We talked about Zerodha, we talked about Zomato. What else do you read?
The companies are overvalued.
Okay. Apart from that, and what's in it for you? Please, I again want to stress on this. Look at the first line. Headlines is all fine. What's in it for you? What is important for you folks? What is making a difference or disruption in your life today and 1 year from now or 2 years from now? Are you all worried about the job market? It's okay to be worried, but prepare for it. All right. See, why I'm asking you these questions is right. What are the gaps? What do you feel that in your own skill sets, in your own resume, in your own thought process? What do you think you should be learning in the next couple of years? If you want to think like an entrepreneur, you want to think like an innovator, you want to think like a creator. You all have heard of the gig economy? You've heard of creator economy? Right? These are all very important things, and this is where you're going to make a lot of money if you are smart and astute. But you should learn about these things. Okay? How many? I know I asked you this question. No, how many of you have actually gone out and sold products or services, or tried to, or how many of you have been sold to a lot? People keep bombarding you with messages, calls among your friends that someone is trying to sell a product. Anyone is building some things around say handmade soaps or clothes or something like that? No one? Usually in colleges there are people who do that. Homemade food. None of you guys are doing that? Surprising. Okay. Okay, we talked about Zerodha. Now, which are the other companies that you all know who have been bootstrapped? Well, what is Zoho? Have they raised funding? No, right? Okay. Now, there's one more trend that I want you all to research work and focus on. That many founders, okay, who have raised a lot of money are coming together and they're doing angel investing, either on their own or as a group. So, who knows about the family office of the Common Brothers? So, look up that, okay? They have their own company. How many of you have heard of something called Together Fund? So that has been started by all the SaaS company guys who have made a lot of money. They're doing it. How many of you have heard of SaaS Boomi? Yes, SaaS Boomi is also something I would recommend and request you all to research work. Okay, there's many other things. But I'm just giving you some of these things. Yes, let's go down back to the last couple of lines. Any of you guys are working on or thinking? I know you're not an engineering college, but anything around drones or EVs or blockchain or Web3? So I was at last Sunday, I was with the people from Bits Pilani. 55% or 60% of them, I would say, totally is on Web3. They don't know how to make money, but they're building that. They're building for the future. Do you all do research work around that? Anything you'll understand? Sure. Metaverse. What is the meaning of metaverse? Forget about what Mark Zuckerberg was saying. Okay, and So any of you guys have understood about AR, VR? Have you built any product or do you use this AR, VR tool? Any of you know how to build a website? 3D website? Okay, so think about that, right? That's what the metaverse and whatever it is, AR, VR, 3D. That's where the money is. Okay, I just want to stress on that. Money comes from there. Okay. Anyone who's looking at okay, what do you understood about ESG or sustainability or eco-friendliness? Anything that comes from anyone thinking about waste management, water conservation, recycling of old garments? Yeah, talk loudly, sir. Only corporates. Corporates make about 5% of our. What about building all this into your startup? Because many now new funding that comes in, they will actually study, they will do forensics and diagnostics on your carbon footprints, how eco-friendly you are, what are your sustainability measures, what are your diversity things. If you're only going to be men, big problem. Of course, it's women, no problem, but only men it becomes a problem, right? So you have to have diversity. You have to have inclusive, you have to be inclusive. So I want you all to think about this because this is the real world. When you all go out, these are things you're going to be bombarded with these things. What do you do then? You can't say that I didn't know, I was not taught in college, I didn't read about it, I was not aware of it. That's not an excuse. Well, must, I repeat again, right? Go to your story, Ink42, ET Tech. Please do some reading. I'm okay. Harvard Business Review and all that is all fine. But at least apna jo, our Namma Urali, of course, from outside of Karnataka, I realize now. So basically, what I'm saying is that we should know what is happening in our own home ground, in our own backyard, in our own cities, etc., etc. Okay. What can you do from now? How many of you guys don't have a LinkedIn profile? Don't have, right? Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Quora. Are you all part of Discuss and Discuss or Quora or Discord? You all have Discord on your phone, part of channels, Telegram, WhatsApp groups, LinkedIn groups, Slack channels.
Yes, sir.
Fantastic. Any of you guys are building any communities right now on Slack or Discord or WhatsApp? How many people do you have?
200.
2,500. Who said 2,500? Okay. Good. But are you all active, engaging? If I am talking about all this, how many of you guys got a podcast? You all blog, you all contribute articles? Any of you, do you have a college magazine? How many of you are part of it? One girl at the back who's taking photographs. Anyone else? Maybe you all should find out about these things. Because you have to have an understanding of the industry, what's happening, deep research work, building communities is a very crucial thing. Digital marketing, how many of you guys are taking courses or you have run Facebook campaigns or Google Ads, SEO? You have this skill set or don't have this skill set? If you don't, please build it immediately. Don't say I will hire, I will learn tomorrow, I will get someone else to do it. Learn this business. You must understand about these things. And alumni networks. Alumni networks. Are you looking at your past students? Are you taking the help of the teacher, your wonderful teachers here? How many were doing that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hands. Small hands, 5.5. So why I'm emphasizing on these things, right? This is also about startups, entrepreneurship, building community, building your next, customers, your hires, finding jobs, build your own network, build your skills. It's all about you. All right. I know I also said that, find a team, build cohorts, get friendly with the right folks, but also you have to build your own skills. Am I saying the right things or you feel that I'm just, don't tell me if I'm wrong, okay? I'm just bad. Okay, and meeting and talking to more industry leaders. So how many of you guys are working for an SME? I mean, when I say working with interning, working for an SME company. Large, 100 people, 200 people, manufacturing, factory. Little bit older companies, any of you are doing that? Have any FMCG companies? Any beverage companies or snacks companies? They're also there, right? Good turnover, good profit. They're doing really well for themselves. So just diversify. Why I want to emphasize on this is I want you to diversify your experiences, your thinking, the networking that you all do. I want to let's have a quick recap. But thank you so much, Manju. I'm so honored to be here. And this is all about me. I do share a lot of resources. So if you look at Facebook and Twitter, I think it's all about, again, startups, innovation, funding, entrepreneurship, what are the industry reports. That's what I keep sharing. So please utilize it well. Then we'll come to this is what we do at Twitter, do a lot of angel investing. There is a lot of information and resources on our websites. Please go through it and take, make full use of it. Types of funding, own money comes first. Maybe I'll increase the font of that own money part of it. And yes, taking money from profits, taking money from customers is critical. Some of these things, how many people are from, say, Telangana, Hyderabad? Anyone from Hyderabad? There's something called Tea Hub. You should go and check that out. They do a lot of programs and events. Go there. How many people are from Kerala? Trivandrum or Cochin? So they have this Kerala Startup Mission. They do a lot of programs, free events, experience. If you are on holiday or taking a summer break or doing bunking from college, please go there. Spend time there and then ask for attendance. It's worth it. Okay. Of course, I will have to talk about this because it's a very major source of funds. And understanding of business. Okay. Who can tell me what SHA stands for? SHA. It stands for Shareholders Agreement. So when I was asking you, you will have a startup, you have a co-founder. You will have a co-founder. What is the agreement between you all? That's very critical. Okay. How many people have studied what is a term sheet or legal terms or MOUs, contracting, HR principles? Important. Okay. Very critical, very important. What will investors look for in a business? The viable exit strategy. Very critical. If they are not going to make money, if they don't see the vision, then why would they want to touch you or invest in you?
But this is the viable exit strategy or just a later
Sorry?
So like the startups are valuations, like they increase the valuation, they sell it to other people, right? So is this a greater pool theory or what?
I have no clue and I will not comment on this. This is not required. Don't get into that. Take it off from your mind. Focus. Exit strategies being viable. And if you don't make money for them, why would they want to invest in you? It is not about making a bigger pool. You think there are fools out there? There are no fools. They may make mistakes. They may fail, but they're not fools. Right? Please understand this very clearly. This is a suggested pitch deck template. There is a lot of resources out there. Anytime you want to go through it, but I'll just condense this because this is the most important things. And I want to talk about this fact, right? Like, what will you do with the funds? Why do you want funds? That's very critical. Even if you don't get funding, you get this right, you're sorted in life. When you're talking to whether an investor or a partner or someone that you want to work with or you want to hire, what are you going to talk to them about? Your mentors, your advisors, your teachers and professors. Please, they are such important people. You must have little trust in them and you should learn from them. Headlines, what's in it for you? Okay, so again, all these questions you're asking me, let's not go there. People will talk about funding, they'll talk about all these things, but what matters is for you. What is it that you're going to learn? What is the storytelling skills? What is the USP? How are you going to convince people to back you up? And that is not easy. How many people are shy, introverted, don't like to talk too much in class, etc., etc.? Nothing wrong. Okay, but you got to build your communication skills. It's so important. You need to have that. And LinkedIn profile, those who don't have LinkedIn profiles, please start building it. Please be very, 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 very careful about what you all post these days on Instagram, Facebook, and all that. Huh? I mean, you put something out there, it stays there forever. Nothing can be deleted. Be very cautious about that. And I want to emphasize on this because you all are now going out into the market. You're not going to be interacting with people. You're going to be meeting family members. You're going to be meeting your friends, alumni networks. What are they going to look at? Is making a big difference. Some research work because this is going to be made available for you. So please, whatever you guys want to use. This is just quick snapshots. These are some of the D2C brands. You might have heard about this. Mama Earth and Boat, right? And Shark Tank. I'm sure a lot of you guys see Shark Tank and learn from it. Okay, don't again. There's a lot of glamour. There's a lot of noise. So learn from it. This is just a snapshot. Okay, this is something by ET Tech. So I should go through this. They keep sharing this every month, every 15 days actually. I'm just talking about some other. I know that you are a management college, but these are some very hot sectors, right? Cyber security and healthcare. So what is really happening in these industries, in these sectors, we should understand. And that's it. I hope I have been on time, sir. I have not messed up. I still have time. I still have time. Okay. So that's what I'm saying. So, these are some of the things that I keep doing. I do a lot of sessions. Not alone. Again, I don't do this alone. I have some wonderful friends in ecosystem and community, people who work for banks, who work for accelerators and incubators, or they are themselves founders with big companies. Phenomenal knowledge beyond what I know in product, in building companies, in investment scenarios, etc., etc. But these are the workshops that I'm happy to, take the help of the team here as well to do some stuff. Questions and anything else? Please go ahead, sir. Thank you, my friend. Okay. Okay. Yeah, you have any specific? Yeah, specific. Yeah.
Since banks in other non-funders already devastated by war, after stability, if each micro and big enterprises want to reback their business, no one couldn't give a loan. This is a problem what we faced after stability. So based on your expertise knowledge, how do you advise us?
Work with NGOs. Yes. Find NGOs.
Yeah.
Find corporates who are willing to rebuild using CSR, etc., etc. This is the right way to do it. And I was talking about empathy and compassion, right? So there are some people who have social impact. These are the people that we're going to talk to.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome. I hope I could answer that question. I'm not giving you specifics, but think and research along these lines. Okay. Who else? There are no bad questions, stupid questions. Please ask. Okay. But filter the noise. Okay. I just want to emphasize on that. Too many times these headlines cloud your judgment. Don't let that happen. Was that so boring? Yeah, go ahead. Grants. Yeah. So grants are given by government. I had mentioned this anyway. These resources will be made available to you all, so no problem. So, like for example, there is this Elevate and other thing. Have you heard of the Elevate program? It's a government of Karnataka runs. Yeah, so that's also part of grants, right? Kerala Startup Mission gives grants, Odisha government gives grants, Tamil Nadu government, Maharashtra Innovation Society, CCAM, BIRAC, all these people give grants. But these are the most difficult to get, because you have to be really good in applying for it. So what you should do is go to these websites, all these BIRAC and other things that I have mentioned, right? Go to their website, they have the templates about how exactly BIRAC, CCAM gives grants, Elevate gives grants, Government of Karnataka. You have to go through the website, download the templates, look at how many people they've given the grants to, and you'll get your answers.
The Elevate program under the Startup Karnataka was conducted in this very room a couple of weeks back. It was for women entrepreneurs especially. But those programs are conducted in our campus also.
One of these days, we have to try to get to the this NASCOM and all, and the Kerala Digital Economy Mission, Karnataka Startup Center, they sit in HSR. Behind the police station, there's a QNX building. That's where they sit there. They do a lot of events. But again, don't bunk for it. Yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you, Vijayta, for your time.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Personal insight from my side. I've known Vijayta for a few years now. In fact, I've interacted with him on the ecospace because the startup ecospace, in fact. You walk into 70 to 80% of the startups in Bangalore and refer his name, they would know him. That's how he's popular. Bad or good is for the entrepreneur at the end of the day to decide. But he is known in the startup ecosystem to that extent. And it has been immense learning, I guess, for all of you to hear from him. And I personally felt that some of the points that he mentioned about what the investor looks for in the new startup, don't go by that fool's theory that you talked about. Please do not. They are the sharpest minds who invest in your startup. If they don't feel that you and your startups are worth it, they will not bother. They'll show you the door immediately. So what the investor looks for in your startup, I think that's something that you need to look. The pitch deck template, that's a good initiative for the students. In fact, the importance of the team. You can't run a race alone, in fact. They talk about the sustainability and diversity. Thank you for stressing on them, in fact. And the importance of research and reading. Please do not ever forget that. Get off the reels and do some research on your startup, what you have in your mind, in fact. Thank you, Vijayta, once again. It's been a pleasure having you on board. Can you give it up a bit more out of Vijayta? We'll have the next speaker, Anirudhan Vasudevan, in a few minutes from now. Vijayta, you'll have to come back for one more minute. Back on the dice. Students, can you just please be seated?
I request Professor Sunita BK to felicitate the speaker.
Morning, everybody. I'm Vineet Ravindran, and I take immense pleasure in introducing Anirudhan Vasudevan as the next speaker. Called Anirudh or Ani by his friends and colleagues, he comes with 19 plus years of experience, HR experience especially, having worked for the two top-notch organizations, Mahindra Satyam and Infosys. Currently, he is designated as Senior Director HR, working with Replicon, a time intelligence company, and is responsible for all the facets of HR in the organization. Anirudh brings a strong, holistic, inside out and outside in perspective to both people strategy and execution. He has successfully built new businesses, country teams, and takes active role in mentoring the next generation leaders. Having lived and worked in Asia, Middle East, and US, he has a unique blend of global and local perspectives to any business. He has a panache for innovation and has been recognized for multiple innovative and cost-effective projects. He also has rich experience in HR transformation, HR digitalization, employee engagement practices, organizational development, total rewards, mergers and acquisition. He is also a Six Sigma black belt and a budding executive coach, pursuing his ICF certification. In his free time, you will find him playing chess and cooking. Anirudh, the ice is yours.
Hello. Morning. You hear me? Cool. So, what is that you want to hear from me? Silence. Data analytics and its impact and uses in the large corporations. So, as Vineet said, I had the privilege of working with Mahindra Satyam and Infosys. And the last 1 month, I'm working with Replicon. It's a product of transition and third. Am I audible? Back? Yes, sir. Okay, awesome. So as you have heard, it's more into time management, product organization. And if you look at all these, three organizations, data plays a very important role, right? And data also plays a very important role in our everyday life. And it's the same thing with HR and HR analytics as well. So any quick takers on, I'm sure all our, geeks sitting over here, what is data according to you? I'm little love interaction of it, so otherwise I will sleep off. What is data? Systematic collection of information. Yeah. I think, don't think that I'm going back to the net, but just to, set the context, right? Especially when you see in an organization, and, you have all those new employees who are joining, right? So that is an example of data. The payroll, right? For example, tons and tons of Excel sheets, which comes in with multiple aspects of salary component, right? From various sources, you collect all those information and you place it, and then you pay an employee the salary. That's data, right? When you're talking about insurance, is very important for every family member, right? Or every employee gets an insurance package from the organization. So you collect all those information together, that is data, right? So it's basically those plain facts and statistics collected during an operation of a business. Now, why is it important is a question that we typically ask, as we kind of learn everything. Unless some of these basic things are there, we will not be able to run business, right? So data is so very important, right? Now, the other aspect about data is also to see how it can be measured and recorded within a wide range of business activities, right? When you see any of these corporate coming and talking about their financials or how they perform, it's all about the data that they have, right? And they are able to predict and say as to how it's going to happen in the next 6 months to 1 year, right? So which means a lot of churning of data happens in the backend. A lot of analysis happens in the backend, right? Which eventually leads you into an analytic oriented aspect. Are you guys with me?
Yes, sir.
Right? So from that standpoint, a data itself may not be very informative. It's a basis for all reporting, and it's very crucial for the business. So let me just, take an example from an HR perspective. How many of you love HR here? Okay. What is HR?
Human resources.
Human resources. Okay. Any other definition for human resources?
Manpower.
Manpower. All right. Cool. And how many of you are passionate about HR? Nobody. Okay. And so what are the things you know in HR?
Our HR is basically, putting the right person the right job. Putting the right person at the right job. And suppose the organization needs a lot of more employees. So you are the HR of the team, so you choose the right people at the right place, and how many amount of people are needed in the right place. Like for marketing team, you need some people. For marketing team, you need someone, or like let it be the HR department also you need people. So yeah, and employees at higher positions and all of it. So yeah,
Brilliant, brilliant. And typically, this what you said is called as talent fulfillment, right? Because each of those teams, they need people, and you typically get into the details in terms of how many people are required, right? Then you get into something called as what is a job? How is the job defined, right? What are those areas of responsibility that the particular job needs to handle? How many people is required to do that job, right? So, brilliant. Thank you so much. What's your good name?
Sujan.
Brilliant. Thanks so much for that. So, if you look at one of these simple examples that I've taken over here in terms of what data is, right? Let's take a case of an employee transfer, right? An employee is, let's say, in one location and wanting to go to another location, right? Now, the first aspect which typically happens is a conversation between the employee and the manager, right? So that's some basic thing which needs to happen so that the employee says that, yes, I want to get moved from this location to another location to take care of my personal and professional needs, right? The second one, what happens is this information, right, gets recorded as an employee aspiration in the system, right? So the information gets into as a data, right? Now, there are multiple other systems which we run in the organization which collects multiple data, right? Now, from one of those systems, we typically map this and we say as to if this employee has to be retained in this organization, then we will need to ensure that this information which has come to us as data and try to see how we can make that as an actionable insight, right? And that if you're able to actually make it happen, then it becomes a positive outcome. Am I able to make sense? right? So a data in itself is just an information, and it typically depends as to how we are able to pick it up and process it. Any questions? All right. I'm just going to talk a lot of stories, and I'm sure any questions you have, please stop me whenever you want to. Now, what are the problem statements that I've at least seen in some of the experience that I had is attrition, right? And there are phases in the entire 2 decades of whatever experience that I was having in corporate, that it goes high, it goes low, it depends on the team, it depends on the managers, it depends on the organization as to what kind of a people value that we typically hold. Now, there was an attrition in an organization A, and the first thing that the management did is to they tried to analyze what are those drivers for attrition. And one of the things that they found out was maximum number of employees who were quitting were the freshers who joined the organization within 2 years, right? And they compared that in terms of what are the various reasons, and they also compared it with the market, and they understood what are those other organizations are doing with regard to these freshers who are joining the organization. And when they went into the root cause, they understood that definitely the people who are joining the organization were not able to have a clarity on the financial growth and the growth in the organization when they join, right? They're very short-sighted, right? So they do a 2 year and then they move on. They're not able to get the larger picture. And from that standpoint, the organization decided to give them kind of a career map, which can help them to see in the next 5 to 6 years, how can they grow with the organization. So if you look at it, where analytics comes over here is the part about the discovering that you typically do when you do with the data, the way you interpret the data that you're talking about, and most importantly, the patterns that you see in some of those analysis and how do you communicate them. Now that's a place analytics comes in. So with data and analytics, you typically see those insights, and those meaningful data might not always be right? So you apply hypothesis and try to see how you can prove it. Now it doesn't stop there. Once you get those information, you really need to see how you can work out your other aspects. You need to change your processes, you need to change your policies, so that that aspect becomes an outcome which can be defined and measured from a success perspective. Are you guys with me?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. So a quick bookish aspect again, and in terms of the various type of analytics that we typically see, I'll just try to give some examples so that it makes sense. One is descriptive analysis, and typically in HR, we always talk about this offer to conversion ratio, right? So if you typically hire, let's say, 100 employees need to be hired in a quarter, we go back and then say that so many employees need to be called for interviews, or a candidate needs to be called for interviews. Then out of which so many people will clear the selection process, and then so many of them will accept the offer, and then finally so many will join. So there is a description which goes from a process perspective, and based on experience, they have those analytics in place for them to do that decision making, right? So if they need to go with, let's say, 10 employees or 10 candidates to be joining the organization, then they know how many aspects of data or people that they need to invite for it. So that's typically the offer to conversion ratio, right? Because people will get the offers, they may not join. So a lot of those scenarios will come. So that is typically how you do a descriptive analysis or analytics. The second one is diagnostic analytics. Now, if you look at over here, we typically use the historical data. And this is again a very difficult part in any organization where you retain employees. So how many of you have heard about employee life cycle? Right? Starting from a person getting into the organization to the person quitting the organization, that entire cycle is called as employee life cycle, right? So one of the important aspects is, when an employee leaves the organization, you typically wonder why the employee is leaving the organization. There might be many reasons, right? Always we think compensation is one of the reasons, but not necessarily it is true, right? You will have multiple other, aspirations that an employee will carry. Now, one of the fundamental things which I personally believe is every individual is unique, right? So there are a lot of uniqueness in why a person also might need to leave or will be leaving, right? So from that standpoint, you diagnose as to what are those various reasons as to why an employee is leaving, get those complete analysis and try to see how through that you will be able to do a detailed aspect about an exit attrition analysis. Right? So that's something where you diagnose this entire problem. Are you guys with me? I'll be asking questions though. Okay. The third one is predictive analytics. Now, this is very interesting. And, if you look at into it, there are a lot of permutation, combination, and with a lot of experience, this is something which is done in organization. For example, you have hundreds, thousands of people in the organization, right? And let's say you have a separate budget to give employees as compensation hike. It's not possible to give everybody a very high hike, or you might not have those budgets. So how do you identify some of your talents in the organization and ensure that they are having a growth path in the organization? Now, that identification, you would need to deal with a lot of data, right? You need to pick up the data from the organization in terms of their performance history, how many projects that the employees worked upon, what are the billable positions in which the employees worked upon, and try to get all these things, apply your analytical formulas, and see who are those people, right, who are very critical for your success in the organization, who are those people who are very critical from the project's execution standpoint, right? And accordingly see what are those next steps that we need to take to them. So that is called as predictive analytics, right? The last one is prescriptive analytics. Now, if you look at this particular aspect, we spoke about attrition prediction, right? And we spoke about management or aspirations in the earliest example of transfer. Now, in prescriptive, what happens is you find out where the problem is, and then you try to say, okay, this is something which is going to happen. And if this is going to happen, you might need to do these things so that you can try to see how you can prevent that from happening. So that is going to be the problem and also a solution so that going forward, you're not able to, or rather you are able to stop that from coming across. Make sense? Okay. So what are the 4 types of analytics that we saw? One of you just stand up on the mic. You're worse than my college professor.
So descriptive, diagnostic, prescriptive, and last one.
Good. Thank you so much. Awesome. So I just want to quickly, take a step back and maybe talk about my data story, right? Because I personally, a firm believer that data is definitely a lot. Yeah, go ahead.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
So you were talking about iteration a few slides back. So about 6 months back, with the IT companies, including Infosys, I'm sure you were a part of that iteration that time.
Yeah.
So a lot of people were working from home and leaving the companies, IT companies mostly. So how did you guys tackle that?
Yeah, no, I think this attrition problem is a never-ending problem, right? And I think the entire industry was speaking about it. Thanks for asking that question, because if I have to talk about my experience, especially with Infosys, the sector which I was managing, the retail sector, if you look at from a business perspective, we almost degrew by 16%, right? And while the other sector was slowly picking up, but after 6 to 7 months, the industry grew so much that we were able to come back and do a 10 to 15% from a retail perspective. But what was happening was the offers were like right royally going here and there, and it was very difficult to hold employees back, right? So at least in my career with Infosys for the last 11 years, I've not seen so many changes in terms of an employee packages or the growth opportunities that we are able to provide them ever, right? Because if the market is behaving so much, then we need to internally take those decisions and see how somebody is not able to leave the organization. for which you need to know, or what are those things which is required, right? So the first time we introduced what is called a skill, right? And if you have a specific skill, can we provide you a skill allowance, right? How can you learn a new skill, right? What are those places, if you say that you are working out of Delhi and you want to continue to work out there, so is that something that we can work out? So a lot of those aspects started to come in, and even now, I think, even now, if you look at it, the trend continues, but there are efforts that we quickly take, and analytics plays a huge role, because based on those data, based on whatever the types that you saw, typically the management gets those decisions and accordingly implement it, right? Now, when you implement some of these projects or some of these decisions, it's very important that we keep cost in mind, right? It's very easy to say, can you give me 30% hike or 40% hike, right? But what that means to your bottom line, right? You need to ensure that your margins are there. What is margins? What is margins? Profits, right? Unless you have profits, then your organization is not very successful, right? So from that standpoint, all those aspects were worked out, and the companies are still fighting it out. So it's a good question. Thanks for asking, and we're hopeful that things will change.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, awesome. So just a quick representation of what I've seen in the last almost 20 years, right? So we still use Excel. Excel is like God for data, and I used to collate all those final settlement when employees leave the organization through this, and a lot of data gets formed. And typically those days, we kind of say that so many people quit. This is the team in which we quit, and then put a summary view, and then try to see how we can represent the data. Then I still remember in 2003, we wanted to see how we can have paperless office, right? And that's where automation started. And once the automation started, we slowly started to get reports from the systems that they're talking about, right? And Six Sigma methodology is something which is, I'm sure will really help you from a futuristic perspective. I'm going to spend some time on that. And that really came into place. And there are still hundreds of Excel sheets which are floating around. And any new initiative that we do in the organization, a new Excel will come, right? And many times, many of these Excel will get lost, which means when you're deleting an Excel, your data is getting lost, right? And that became one of the biggest problem statements for me when I'm working with some of these companies. Along with the leadership team, we were able to try to see how using technology, right, how the automation path is moving into the digitization zone, right? And then slowly when we start working and getting some of these data together, get all these systems in place, it took a long time for us. But on the click of a button, if you need something, you need to have, the white rice in place. If you don't have a white rice, then you are not able to have a meal, right? So from that standpoint, all the information were collected together. And for example, if I have to talk about my experience, when we were doing this, we had almost 1,300 plus data parameters available. Now, if you look at data, many data are structured, many data is unstructured, right? And when you need to see an information, it should be in a form where you are able to consume that respective data, and basis that you're able to decide, right? And that's where our challenges lie in. So with automation and some of these digitization work, we're able to kind of understand as to where some of those problems were there, and what was the root cause of the problems, and what were the possible solutioning, right? So from that standpoint, once you're able to get that, then you typically have a guideline change or a policy change. And then, you really need to study what your cost implications are going to be. And finally, the data gets transferred through an analysis to a solution for a problem that you're talking about. So this has been my, experience, in the last 2 decades working on data and its analytic oriented aspects. Any questions? Yeah. 100 out of 100 if I give you a test now. All right, cool. Okay, this is going to be very interesting, and I'm hoping I'll have some questions here. If you look at, can somebody tell me what is Six Sigma? Hearing for the first time, anybody? Okay, so yes, thank you. So if you look at, let's say, making that projector, right? When you're making a projector, right, there will be a defect. And in a 1 million projector, if there are 3.14 defects, right, then you typically say that you have reached a Six Sigma level of making a projector. So it's a quality word which kind of depicts as to how a product has to be made, what are the process in making it, and will you be able to find a defect in that. So if your Six Sigma achievement, then which means your product is awesome, and there are very less defects that you make. Now, typically, Six Sigma is done in a manufacturing industry, but in an IT industry as well, we were able to use it those days. And of late, we have something called as a Lean Sigma. Now, what it typically does is, if there are 15, 20 steps in a process, then you typically ensure that how we are able to do those same activity in less process. Are you guys with me? Okay. So one of the story that I have, again, way back in 2003 is, we used to give insurance cards to, employees, and then we sit and write on those whatever documents and then send to them, right? So we took that as a project, and the problem statement was, how can we help the employees without giving those insurance cards? Is there something that we can work, because they need to take these insurance cards, go to the hospitals, and say that yes, I have an insurance with this organization, so please pay me, right? So we set a project, and then we analyze the complete data in terms of how many people, what are the kind of defects that the card is having. Like, for example, instead of Mr., it would have been written Miss, and a lot of those aspects were there, right? Then we say, okay, this is the process in which we are issuing the card, these are the steps involved, and this is the fishbone analysis which says that what are those root causes that comes in this aspect, right? And then finally we do a to-be process, and then what are those failure mode effective analysis if the process has to be in place, and then ensure that the process goes in, right? So what we finally did is, after all these analysis of data and information, we said that, why do you need to have a separate card for insurance? Can't you use your company ID card itself, right? Now, it's a very simple solution, that you would have come across, but typically the data will help you to go through it, understand the various logics, and try to see how it can be done. Am I making sense?
Yes.
Any questions? It's been a long time for me to come back to college, so please pardon me if I'm not able to communicate. Any questions? No questions. All right. So is it interesting or no? Okay. All right. Awesome. Cool. Again, in the corporate world, why do we need this data, and why we need to do those analytics? At the end of the day, for anything and everything, you will have somebody who is going to be the recipient of it, and that's what we call a stakeholder. So, you typically have a leadership team, right? For example, Salim from an Infosys perspective might want some of these data, right? So that's the leadership team. Then you have the delivery managers, you have those leaders who typically manage those projects in the organization, managing around 300 to 400 people. They will need those data, right? Then you need a manager. So typically, if you look at the corporate world, anywhere between 15 to 20 people, work with the manager, right? You need to get trained. You need to understand what's going on. So managers are the other people who typically use this data. And then your finance, your support team, everybody requires this data, right? So the most important aspect is, in any organization, especially in the small or the big organization, data has to be available first in a kind of a form. So today, if you look at it, there are organizations like Darwin-Borg or People Strong, which typically have some of these aspects as called as HRMS tool. So you really need not buy applications or build applications inside. You can actually buy it from them. So that's how some of those, modern business also has sprung up. And we're trying to see how some of these people are able to help us to get some of these aspects together. Okay. So I just want to, I'm not too sure if it's really going above your head. So please let me know if you have any questions. But some of the HR terminology is something that I'm trying to use over here, so that you have those aspects mapped in your mind, and then typically you can ask me any specific question. Now, how many of you know what is internal job posting is all about? Yeah, what is it? Okay, cool, good. So one of the things that we did was, we posted, IJPs and across the organization, and there were multiple levels in the organization. Now, once we posted those IJPs, and every level people kind of applied, right? But we found that in one of the junior level that the acceptance of these IJPs were very low, right? Then we were like wondering as to why people are not applying for IJPs, right? And then after reviewing multiple data, speaking to multiple people and using some of those statistical tools, we come to a conclusion that, the pool in which, if let's say 1,000 people were there, most of them have already got promoted to the next level, right? So when there's an opportunity to get promoted, then the pool that you're talking about for the IJPs are very less. But at the senior level and at the mid level, we were able to identify that there were people, and hence it was very successful. So some of these aspects can help you when you go into the data, understand that data, understand what are the root causes of the particular problem, and try to see how we're able to solve it, right? A quick one on another story is on, let's say, the quality of hires, right? We got an issue saying that people who are being hired within the organization, their quality was not good. So again, what we did is we went back, went into the performance data of some of these people. We kind of found that it's very, very average. So then we again, there are a lot of data mining exercises, compared multiple data, multiple tools, and then we kind of found out as to who are those people who went for those interviews. And there we found an answer where, in terms of those managers who came for the weekend drive, they were not properly trained in the way to recruit candidates. And because of which, there is definitely a quality which has gone down, right? Now, through analytics, you're able to find this out. But what happens is there is always this measurement or an outcome that you typically need to do, which is basically now you need to go back and ensure that your people or your employees who are actually going to recruit others need to be trained, right? So that was one of those problem statements which was identified. And again, through analytics and the usage, we were able to close it. Plus, it gave us a positive outcome. Any questions? Sorry. Okay. So what are the data for identifying a problem, right? See, I think thanks for the question. Your question is basically what are the data analytics techniques that we can use, right? Now, if you look at the corporate world, okay, and if you look at large organizations or if you look at small organizations, the number of data that you're going to deal with is going to be huge, right? Now, the first aspect is one, data is going to be used on a day-to-day basis. So for those aspects, you don't need any specific tools or techniques. It's a process which is in place, right? Like the example that we spoke about, payroll process. But let's say, for example, you need to solve a problem, right? And you feel because of that problem, some of those business aspects that you're running is not going well as you wanted it to be. Then you get into whatever the techniques that you are studying today, right? You can kind of apply that. At the same time, most importantly, logically apply as to what is the data that I'm talking about? How is the data behaving, right? If I get through, so let's say, for example, predictive analysis or descriptive analysis, get to those some of those tools that we're talking about. It can be like, for example, if you look at Six Sigma, right? We used to do something on Minitab, right? So the Minitab will be able to help us to give as to where exactly it's going and becoming an issue, and what is the solution that we can recommend through the process changes. So from that standpoint, I think today there are multiple tools which are there. And as I said, digitization has ensured in such a way that we are able to get those information automatically on the screen, right? So for example, you have seen those videos where, we will be able to push the data. So technology has developed so much, but at the end of the day, the base is data, this information, and in a structured manner as to how you will be able to read that particular aspect. So any statistical tool definitely can be applied. Don't see that as an issue, but you need to have a business context to it and what is the problem you're trying to solve. That's going to be important. Make sense? So, I mean, we spoke about data, we spoke about the various systems. Some of the aspects which has helped me and the organization is the availability of data in a system connecting all the applications. Now, why am I making the statement is if you, starting from the day you join till the time you leave the organization, you are typically coming across multiple data because everything is an event in the organization, right? You move to another location, you get married, then you have a kid, and the insurance comes. So all those data has to be available from an employee standpoint, which is very, very important for you to function as a business, right? Then from that, you typically represent it in various forms of graphs and tables, and then that's something where you do those analysis or whatever we spoke till now. The other aspect is you take a raw data and then you do a very simple analysis. And most importantly, some of those aspects where we find as to where the problem is through a hypothesis, right? Like, for example, when you ask about a tool, hypothesis can be a mode in which you can actually get into those simple things, right? Like, for example, one of the biggest thing that we found through a hypothesis, employees staying in the organization for a longer time, right? If they get promoted, than the people who are coming as laterals from outside, right? Is that beneficial? And we found out that, yes, if you're able to provide those promotions and career growth opportunities for employees within the organization, they will stay more longer than people who are coming as lateral companies outside organization. So from that standpoint, hypothesis is again a very important medium in which some of these data can be analyzed. So, this is some of those aspects, in terms of data. Yeah, question.
So I have a question that, so basically, if you want to get into the domain of a compensation benefits manager, so I heard that you need to have a financial background, right? So what are the prerequisites for that? Like, how do you get into compensations? And because I'm from a financial domain, so now I want to get into compensation. So what are the steps that I need to take?
Yeah. So I think, please continue to ask some of these questions, even if it's not on the data analytics, because I see many of you are really thinking about it, right? So I think a good question, right? And if you look at human resources, it's all about people. And today, what is happening is, the role that I'm playing today, I need to manage recruitment, I need to manage the compensation benefits, or I need to manage the the training part of it, right? And also the business partner in HR, right? So HR is a very vast field, right? But why is it important today in the business scenario is, it can help you with a strategic orientation that can actually run the business. Because when you talk about compensation benefits, right? Let's say you are spending 100 rupees as an organization. You want to take a guess as to what is the percentage of people salary that you would be paying in that 100 rupees. You want to take a guess?
So maybe
Absolutely, you're bang on, right? 60 to 70% of your cost goes on people, because people are your assets, right? And through them is where you're doing whatever you're supposed to do, especially in the IT industry I'm talking about, right? So from that standpoint, it's a very vast field, and in the entire employee life cycle, you will have compensation and benefits as a part of it, right? Now, compensation and benefits and organizational development. Now, these are the two key things in any HR profile that you will see, right? Now, compensation and benefits doesn't mean that you really need to have a financial background. It's all about understanding the logics. It's all about something that you love, numbers. And most importantly, you need to know how to play with data, right? This becomes very important for you because it's all about numbers and Excel sheets and trying to do those permutations, combinations, and all those aspects. So from that standpoint, I don't think so. Like, for example, I studied, ICWA when I was doing a BCom, and somewhere, I was not finding that interesting, and then I moved on to do MSW in HR, right? So from that standpoint, today I'm managing scene, right? So at the end of the day, I think you need to have an acumen from a finance perspective, but not necessarily you need to be someone who's really studied on that aspect, because CNBs, yes, it's very important, but it takes some time, right? And most importantly, some of these things you learn with more experience, and then it automatically falls. But today, when we go to colleges, when we hire, students after their MBA, right? I mean, typically everybody would be knowing what analytics is, and then they will be able to talk about some of those industry trends and all. But at the end of the day, when you come into an organization, depending upon what maturity the organization is, right, it depends as to where the data is today and where the analytics can be taken to. So from that standpoint, CNB is very interesting, and I don't think so you really need that financial background, but an acumen towards mathematics, I think that will be important.
So I think collection of data has become pretty easy, especially in the corporate world, because of human resource information. So even when it comes to everyday events of the employees and all, it shouldn't be much of an issue as well.
Thanks for bringing that up, but unfortunately, that might not be the case, right? It again depends on organization to organization, right? Any small-time company, okay, which is coming into it, they might even not have systems in place, right? Things still run in Excel sheet, right? For example, the organization which I'm running today, right, from a Replicon perspective, we have a HRMS tool, but not everybody are able to place the data into that particular tool. So which means you're still running an Excel sheet and it's bits and pieces, right? Now, if you look at a company like Infosys itself, one of the biggest projects that I've taken, and it took me almost 2-3 years, was to see how the data, the data in multiple Excel sheets, how it can come together in the automated form and sit in a data lake or a repository. And from there, you're able to pull out what information that you require, right? Because organizations have grown very fast. So the responsibilities of people are also so much that they need to spend that time in terms of investing as to where all the data lies and what is that data which is really important for you to take that decision. That's become like huge. And that's where HR analytics plays a very important role in knowing what needs to be taken and what need not be taken, and what is the final outcome that you're looking at. Yeah, go ahead.
So, but then Infosys has its own HRI system as well.
That's right.
And when it comes to software, companies can modify them to according to their requirement.
Yes, yes.
Then that can create an issue.
No, so see, it's very dynamic, right? Now, the point is having systems is one thing, and even if you have systems, data is very dynamic. Like for example, the question that he asked, right? Now, almost a year back, when the pandemic struck us, our attrition was at 5%, right? And today we are talking about almost a 23 to a 25% of attrition in the industry, right? Some companies might be lower as well, right? So while the systems are there, while the data is there, you will see that huge gap that you are kind of finding, in terms of what to be done, right? So that's where your systems being there will be important, and how you are able to read that data and translate that data into an outcome will be much more important. It's very dynamic. Yeah.
Yeah. So you told me you work at Infosys.
Yeah.
But the attrition rate of Infosys is 28.4%.
Yeah.
Since last 12 months.
Yeah.
So what? So as being in the HR department, so what have you done so that a 28% has come down? It's one of the it's the biggest IT Indian company with the highest rate of attrition in today's day.
I was not able to do anything to that.
Thank you, sir.
No, I think good question again, right? And as I said, right, when the pandemic started, we were talking about 5-6%. And today, in the last 3-4 years, one of the biggest initiatives that Infosys has taken is skill development, right? And yeah, good.
So definitely, so but I don't think it's worked out. So 28.4% is still standing there. So
Yeah. So that's okay.
attrition.
So there are challenges in the corporate world, right? And unless you have challenges, you are not able to really learn and unlearn as well, right? So from that standpoint, maybe the strategies in which the organization has taken is not really work, right? Now, go ahead.
So when you were working for Infosys, what was the attrition during that time?
No. So for the last 2 years, it has been in the same range of 25-30. In fact, it went a year back, it went almost 32%. Right? So things have become very difficult, right? The way you engage employees has become very difficult, right? Especially, always this Infosys will compare it with TCS. And if you look at TCS is able to, kind of do it around 13 or 14%, right? So we work on some of those practices what TCS is also doing. But at the end of the day, it's very dynamic. It depends upon the organization, depends on the team, depends on how you are able to work out some of those strategies internally. And it was an organization where it was less earlier. Now, yes, I think maybe time to redraw some of this.
So we can say that Infosys doesn't have a good HR team.
I mean, I will leave that to you. But then the fact is, it's
So
all
I
about-
think the stat says that so that they don't have a good HR team because 28.4% with the highest Indian biggest IT company has 28.4% of attrition. So I can believe that they don't have a good HR team, right? So
I mean, so it's always debatable, right? Like, for example, what is the attrition in Microsoft? Do you know? Yeah. What is the attrition in Google?
but again, whatever the attrition rates are, there are billion-dollar companies, and again, Infosys is too. But then looking at the Indian market, the Indian thing, like we have COVID, and a lot of people have lost their jobs. And after losing jobs, still people don't want to work with Infosys, and I think that's a good thing to talk about. So 28 point.
So I mean, it's good data. It's definitely a good data. I'm not denying that. And from an aspect of going back and to the drawing board, yes, I need to definitely inform Krish to see what he can do.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for that. Yeah.
Since the application rate is important, it would actually reduce campus recruitment very much. That's what.
Also, I didn't get that.
So to reduce the application rate is important, they actually stop campus recruitment at any place.
They stop. Yeah, so I think these are those things that all of us are learning, right? Like when the pandemic stuck, we were all wondering whether our jobs will be there. Right now, whatever the thoughts that we have, the perceptions that we have, we definitely have. But the fact is, 2 years back, we were literally worried what is going to happen to the world, whether our jobs will be there. Today, whatever the fat salaries that we were drawing, whether we were going to draw that. So that was the situation which was there 2 years back. And then within 6 months, things completely changed, right? And when things change, you will need to really go and redraw the entire aspect as to how you will function as an organization. So the recruitment that you're talking about, and thanks for making that point, has just started almost 6 months to 9 months back. 2 years back, people who were coming from colleges, we were not able to recruit them. The entire industry went through a very, very tough time. And today you're talking about 50,000 people or 1 lakh employees getting into these IT jobs because obviously within the industry, there are a lot of startups which has come, right? The knowledge that you gathered in the industry, in the workspace, you're able to place it in many of those startups or many of those mid-sized companies. So some of these large organizations are getting to big. And there are still people who are very tenured working in the organization because of some of those cultures and some of those things which are going right for them. So from that standpoint, attrition, joining rate are those things which can go up and down. But at the end of the day, when you're talking about analytics, what are those insights that analytics is giving you to see how you can stop them? I think that's going to be important from this perspective. Yeah.
So with regard to prescriptive analytics,
Yeah.
so we have I think we have network design and techniques. And now you told Six Sigma techniques.
Yeah.
So what else other models are there to for prescriptive?
Honestly speaking, I have no view on those models. Okay, I'm talking from a practical perspective because for me, prescription is like you go to a doctor, he gives you a medicine, right? So from that standpoint, a prescriptive is something where you have a problem and how are you able to blend it with the solution, right? Like for example, he was talking about the attrition being 28%, right? Now, one of the measures that we took in the organization is to see what are those aspirations of people. Okay, do I need to go abroad? Is on-site an aspiration for me, right? Is compensation increase an aspiration for me? Or let's say a role change is an aspiration for me. Transfer is an aspiration for me. Which technology do I need to do? So there is a problem. Let's say attrition is a problem. Now you have all these levers within the organization, which might be around 8 or 10 of them. And how do you place these levers into your model, right? So that becomes a mistake. Right? So you can use any tools, it can give you whatever information, but at the end of the day, is whatever you're deciding as a data, you give a favorable outcome, that becomes much more practical.
Super. Thank you so much. And I think I just wanted to, close with this. I think we spoke about data, we spoke about analytics, we spoke about how much of data available. We spoke about some of those perceptions that is available. And the last but not the least, I think data can convey what it can, but unless you do a very good storytelling, unless you do a very good storyboarding in terms of what your problem statement is, what is the context is, and then finally saying that these are the options available to give you a solution, data will continue to be an information. So with that, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your valuable insights on various topics related to the theme of the conference, like HR analytics, its impact on large corporates, attrition, predictive analytics, descriptive analytics, and reiterating on why data is so essential in today's time. Thank you so much for elaborating the types of data analytics in corporates and linking it with your personal experience. Especially your stories were very informative and interesting. Thank you, sir, for your time. It is a great honor to have you with us. Thank you so much. Now I request Ms. Megha Kukreja to felicitate our speaker. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Now, we will have a online technical session by Dr. Claire Walsh, Head of Education at the Institute of Analytics. Please note, we will start with the valedictory of the conference after the technical session, requesting all to assemble back to the seminar hall 1, sharp at 1 p.m. And you can stay back. We will be broadcasting the session here itself. So the session from here, no need to log in. You can watch the session from here. Dr. Elizabeth Charco will be taking care of the session. She will be coordinating it. Thank you.
Anyone who stops learning is old, whether 20 or 80. Anyone? Anyone who keeps learning stays young. The greatest thing in life is keeping your mind young, said by Henry Ford. Namaste and a warm welcome to each and one of you present here. I, Dr. Elizabeth Charco, on behalf of CMS, I welcome you all for this technical session. Dear participants, it is time to introduce our speaker, Dr. Claire Walsh. Ma'am is the head of education at Institute of Analytics. She has a background in education, having written around 20 international best-selling books, and has advised governments and other bodies on assessments and school leaving examinations. She has retained and completed an MSc and PhD in Web Science with the University of Southampton. She works with the Institute in promoting analytics, training, and occasionally works as an expert advisor in legal cases and other analytic issues. Now, with utmost respect and honor, I call upon Dr. Walsh to deliver the technical session. Over to you, ma'am.
Good morning. Thank you. Can you hear me, Dr. Charco?
Yes, we can hear you.
Excellent. Right. And I'm going to try and share my screen. Let me just check that's working. There we go. Right. Hopefully you'll see that in a moment. Are you seeing my screen yet?
Yes, we can see
You
it.
are. Okay, excellent, brilliant. Let's see if I can make that look a bit prettier. Yes, I can. Yeah. Okay. So good morning to you all, and thank you so much for joining me. Actually, good afternoon where you are, isn't it now? Yeah. It's very early in the morning here in the UK. So I am thrilled you asked me to speak to you all, and I am going to talk about data, of course. I'm going to talk about 6 myths around data. These are things that I hear all the time. People ask me questions, and I think especially we know that data is going to be important in the future. How, why, what, and in particular, what's going to happen to my job is often one of the big concerns that people have. So when we started this year, we obviously were in a post-pandemic recovery period. It's hard to remember, but in January this year, we were still undergoing COVID restrictions. And we knew that we were going to have a difficult, bumpy year. We knew this year was going to be hard. We knew this not because I personally have experienced a pandemic before, but because I have access to historical data or data from other regions of the world where they have had pandemics. And so we knew to expect problems. One of the big issues, of course, was that many have left the workforce early. Lots of people chose early retirement. We have a large number of people around the world long-term sick with the effects of having a very bad COVID experience. Some have simply chosen to leave corporate life and become YouTube bloggers or whatever they wanted to do. And so we've had a squeeze on wages, which then, of course, as we now know, has led to all sorts of problems with rising food prices. We've had a war in Europe that has led to rising fuel prices. But I think as well, one of the positive things is that it does give us opportunities for machine-driven solutions. We have the machines ready to help us get through this phase. I believe 2022 is going to be a tipping point for data analytics for several reasons. In particular, at the end of last year, again, it's hard to remember, it's been such a busy year. All of the nations were meeting to talk about how we are going to solve climate change. And 2 of the big solutions coming out of COP21 were the Emerging Climate Technology Framework and the Breakthrough Energy and EU Dataset. And these are special because they are multi-billion-dollar, large-scale demonstration projects of what we can do with the right data at the right time. And it's going to be very interesting watching what people do with these enormous data sets over the next couple of years. And there will be many things we can learn from their insights. Of course, Today, here in the UK and in America and in many areas, I'm sure in India as well, we're looking at data and the cost of living crisis. We used to rely on these big numbers like inflation rates to tell us what was happening with the poorest people. You know, do we have an absolute crisis on our hands where the very poorest people are not going to be able to eat? Or is it not quite that urgent? And figures like inflation are not necessarily all that helpful for that kind of information. What we really need to know is a more granular level of data. What's happening to the cheapest items in a food basket? Are they going up at the same rate as cars, airplane tickets, those kinds of things? And so what we found is actually quite often, we don't necessarily have the exact right data we need yet, but that is starting to change. One of the things I think that is without a doubt is that we are going to need to get data literate, especially if you are a student at the moment and thinking of graduating. We need to get you to the point where you can work with data. We have been here before in the 1990s. None of you can remember that. But in the 1990s, none of us wanted really to become digitally literate. But it was obvious we had to, because the means of communication went digital. And what we saw was that technically skilled staff led the way, and the rest of us eventually agreed to follow. And it's the same in the 2020s. We're talking about data literacy. We have had a number of people who have already gone there and become extremely data literate, especially our friends who work in the computer science department. What we need is for everybody else to now start following. We always say at the Institute of Analytics, I think none of us are unaware these days of AI. I think we all know some of the decisions that are made about us by machines. We've all spoken to a machine. We've all, we know how Google searches and data and all those things work. So I think most of us are AI aware. We know there are machines making decisions about us. Many of us, I would say all of us, need to move forwards and up the ladder to become AI knowledgeable. We need to actually be able to name those algorithms, understand what they're doing, understand what makes them fantastic, understand what makes them awful sometimes, so that we can start to work with the decisions that the machines are recommending. Some of us will then become AI practitioners. We will be able to use the algorithms. And it's not as hard as you might think. It's not as awful as it seems at first. We don't need to be AI researchers. We do not need to be computer science geniuses. We do not need to be mathematics geniuses. We can leave that to the specialists. But most of us will need to get ourselves onto that orange or green block going forwards into the future. And we know from what we learned with digital literacy that it took us a long time to get it right. At first, we thought digital literacy was just about how to use the technology, how to write an email. And then we realized actually we needed to learn different language, different tones, how to write a text, how to write an email, how to write a tweet. We needed more understanding of information, how people were using our data when we go online. We need to teach people how to self-develop. I heard the gentleman earlier talking about visualization. There are new visualizations appearing, tools appearing every year. There are about 50 new tools. Some of those will be better than the old ones. We need to constantly learn and update our skills as these new technologies come along on board. And so it was a much broader picture, we realized. To be digitally literate, to be really operating successfully in the online world, we needed a range of skills. and especially creativity. All those YouTubers who are making lots and lots of money have a lot of creativity in the field of digital literacy. It took us around 20 years to get that right, to realize that digital literacy wasn't just about using software. And I think we are at an advantage when we think about becoming data literate. We, from the very beginning, understand we need a wide picture. We need a wide understanding of what it means to be data literate. For a start, we need to understand the legislation around this. Most of us will be using data that impacts or is held on a server or transits through a server that is either in the European Union or in California. And those two areas, those two regions have very strong data regulations and ethics. We want people to trust what we're doing with data. I'm sure many of you have heard that saying, there are lies, damn lies, and then there are statistics. Statistics have had a bad reputation in the past, and so we need to be ethical to make sure that people trust our work and what we're doing. Yes, we need to understand numerical reasoning, but when I say numerical reasoning, how do we ask questions about the numbers? Somebody presents us with some information. What should be the top questions we should be asking around that? Data collection. I was very happy to do this talk after the gentleman from business and industry, because it's all about collecting the right data, cleaning it up, getting that cleaning up process correct. And it is not easy once we move away from Excel. Then, yes, okay, we need some technical proficiency. So this is where the technical skills come in. But straight away, we're back out to information management. What do we do with this information now that we've got it? The pandemic, many people say we didn't see the pandemic coming. It came as a complete shock. Actually, a machine did see it coming long before the humans could see it. There was an algorithm called the blue dot algorithm, which was trained, it was financed by the Canadian government and some public health organizations. And it was trained to scan local newspapers in various different languages for signs, early signs of a pandemic, because pandemics don't emerge internationally or nationally, they emerge very locally. And the blue dot algorithm reported in December 2019 that there was a problem in China coming out of Wuhan. Long before the rest of us had heard of it, we all heard of the pandemic around about late January, early February. But the Canadian government didn't know what to do with that information. Should they share it? Should they panic the whole world? Should they shut down the borders? So when you get a result from your machines, what are you going to do with it? You have to have a plan. And of course, we have a duty of care, especially if we have privileged access to training in analytics. We have a responsibility to look after those who haven't got that kind of experience. And so all of these things are talking about qualities that are so important to business: trust, reputation, planning future actions, professional competence, interpretation of data, application. All of these things really matter. And there is a place for all of us in this circle of data ethics. We can apply data literacy skills to a full spectrum of work. Obviously, lots of people want to know, how do I make money? That's always the number one concern. But I have supported people working on projects looking at how we improve the quality of life for the dying when people have a terminal diagnosis. What data do we need to be able to make decisions to help them have a better experience? So we have a full spectrum where we can apply these technologies. So when we talk about AI, there is a myth that we want to replace you all. We want a human, we want a robot companion instead of a human companion. And the old-fashioned approach was general artificial intelligence, that we were trying to train machines to be all-round intelligent. And it was a rule-based approach to general artificial intelligence that people used for about 50, 60, 70 years, where we would almost like create a flow chart to tell the machine how to make decisions. It gave the person who was coding it incredibly strong control because they set all the rules. But the difficulty with it was that it just didn't scale. It was very difficult to apply it to complex scenarios. What we have instead these days, around about 2000, we started getting a different approach to artificial intelligence. And it particularly took off after 2016, which is narrow artificial intelligence. It is statistically based. So we're just using the probability maths that you studied elsewhere. It's not rules, it's what can I reasonably assume, what is probably correct. And it solves some problems that are really well suited to mathematical processing. Not all problems, but it solves some that are well suited to it. So we've given up the idea of a human companion and we're saying, let's identify some problems and solve them. It scales unbelievably well, as you know, from the world you live in. But of course, what that means is that we have lost control. We're talking about probably, maybe, I think this is my best guess. And the mathematics have changed as well. When we think about statistics in the past, this is a very simple example. We would give the machine input variables, the 4 and the addition and the 6, and the machine would tell us what the output is. Pretty obvious. When we talk about machine learning mathematics, it's completely different. We will give the machine some input variables. We'll say, here's the number 4, here's the number 6. We will give it an example of the output, what successful output looks like, number 10. And it's up to the machine to work out what to do in the middle there, which variables to use, what mathematical function to use to get more or less to the same outcome that the humans got to. So all machine learning comes down to this equation, y, the thing I want to know, is a function of the data that I have, x. So things have changed. We're doing statistics, but we're not doing statistics the way we always did. Myth number 2, our machines are super smart. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're amazing. This is a photograph of a room in the University of Southampton where I trained. I don't know if you can guess what this room was used for. Let me give you a clue. People enter the door, they walk through the room, and there are cameras all along the walls, photographing and videoing that person. And it turns out each of us has a very unique way of walking. The way that we stretch our legs is as unique as our fingerprints. And this technology has been used to catch criminals where they have covered their faces, so they can't be recognized on CCTV. In 2018, it caught a murderer in Melbourne. How amazing, just by the way he walked. Sometimes they are super smart. Sometimes they are not. Sometimes they get things horribly wrong. One of the earliest applications of image recognition, which is very, very, very complex and challenging, was to try and spot the difference between a wolf and a dog. And this is actually quite a difficult challenge for a machine. Computer image analysis is extremely challenging, and these animals are very similar, but it was incredibly successful. This algorithm had a success rate of something like 97% of the time it could guess the right animal. Amazing. So amazing that the researchers decided to really question what they were doing, look at it, try and work out if there was something that they had missed. And they had. We assumed the machine was doing what we all do, which is look at the animal in the picture. That's what we're looking at when we're trying to decide, is it a wolf or is it a dog? It turns out wolves, as we can see in this picture, tend to live on snowy mountains in Colorado or in Russia, and dogs tend to play on the grass in people's back gardens, catching frisbees or balls. And what this machine had found was that it did not need to look at the animal at all. All it needed to look at was the background. And all this machine was judging was the presence or absence of the green and white color in the background. If the wolf was on grass, it classified it as a dog. If the dog was running across snow, it classified it as a wolf. And you can actually, if you I don't know how tech passionate you all are, but if you would like, you can access the code for this experiment, and you can also access the data to reproduce it and see what fun that was. So when we think about AI today in 2022, what we're really thinking about is a plus X model, where the X is either, you know, it's a machine, another machine, like the Internet of Things, but more often it's a human. We need human machine teaming. We need humans and machines to learn how to work together. Just as you don't just produce your statistical chart from Excel, there's a human that needs to come in, explain it, bring it to life, make sense of it. And we are still working in that world. Myth number 3. We'll just wait and new software will come and we will learn the software when it comes. This has worked for 30 odd years, 30 or 40 years. This approach has been really successful. I think things have changed. Let me talk you through why. We'll use Excel as the example. Excel launched in 1987. When it launched, very few of us knew what to do with it. We didn't want it. It was forced on us because what we really wanted was Word or PowerPoint. And we had this other thing that came with it that nobody used. Throughout the 1990s, we started to understand what we could do with it. We started to learn how to use Excel, and we realized that actually it was amazing for downloading tables and creating visualizations very quickly, and particularly in business for things like tracking sales figures or profit margins, that kind of thing. It was fantastic, and you can do some really good things on Excel today. But we had a change in 2002. There was a small change in the code for the World Wide Web, which is the language that all of us everywhere on the planet use to make it possible for me to sit here in Britain this morning, talking to you in India this afternoon. You know, you could be watching this in Indonesia, in Australia, over in America. There was a small change in that code that all of us use to make it easier to put photographs and comments online without having to ask a professional web designer. And it created the whole world of social media overnight in 2002. And what we realized was actually we had all this new data and Excel can't process it, it can't access it, it can't do anything with it. Things like images, voice recordings, video recordings, free text, location data. There are all sorts of types of data that cannot possibly be processed on Excel. And so we needed at that point in 2002 to start developing alternatives to Excel. And I don't think Excel is going to be adapted to work with these more complex data sets anytime soon. We need bigger data sets. The dog algorithm that I showed you just now took about, it required about 4 million photographs of dogs. And again, you know, we've got limits on the Excel rows, and I don't see that increasing. It doesn't work with the mathematics. Remember that difference I showed you between traditional mathematics, Excel mathematics, and the new mathematics. Excel does not have the capability to run over a data set 100,000 times, iterating to be able to get to that kind of conclusion. And we have instead seen a development of what we call open source environments. I'm going to use two rude words, Python and R, these coding languages that I know you all hate, but they are actually incredible environments. No one person, no one company has built Python or R. They are like Wikipedia. They are created by university researchers, private researchers, incredible individuals, retired mathematics professionals, passionate people who are constantly improving, changing, making these technologies better. And the one small team at Excel of, let's say it's 50 people, 100 people, cannot possibly keep up with the pace of change of open source environments. And so for all of these reasons, I think it's time to stop waiting for a point and click technology to save us. I think it's time to start acknowledging maybe we need to do a little bit of coding. And it's not hugely different. You point and click with your software. You do the same thing, but with words. You say, I would like to run this algorithm on this data set. And you type the words in. So it's not as painful as it might seem if you're not a coder. There are other reasons why I think we should be starting to engage more with the real mechanics of analytics. By definition, BI users tend not to have IT and analytics tools and training, so they don't actually understand the issues of joining data or data structures or the limitations of these things. They don't there is knowledge and insight you gain from just doing the process yourself. And I always use the example, I think it's standard deviation. If you run a standard deviation in Excel or SPSS, you get different answers, because they use different mathematics. And so these things are non-standard, and it's really quite good, I think, to engage in what's going on in the background sometimes. So we do say, maybe you're going to need to do a little bit of coding, not a lot, but a little bit. Myth number 4, we have a magic crystal ball to see into the future. We do not. We do not have a magic crystal ball. We cannot prevent things all the time. But we can give companies that we work with a competitive edge. And I think most of the time that is enough. Just to be a little bit better than the competitors is usually adequate. I mean, some things we can look to in the future. I said at the beginning of this talk that I knew it was going to be a difficult year because the data suggests so. We are incredibly good at this thing called subway uncertainty. Let's say I'm traveling from my home to the office at the Institute of Analytics, and I measure the time it takes me every day because I'm, one of those boring data types. And some days it takes me 36 minutes, and some days it takes me a huge, great 54 minutes. Most of the time it takes me around about 44 minutes. So I keep a record of this for a year and plot it over a chart. If I have a meeting on Monday that is really important and I must be there on time, then I know, looking at this, I should leave my house 54 minutes before, because that is the maximum. And it gives me some idea of the pool of times that it's likely that my journey will take. And when future values are drawn from the same distribution as a historical data set, this kind of uncertainty is incredibly easy to control for. When we have this information, we can make incredibly good decisions. I can leave my house 54 minutes early, but I may well arrive after 35 minutes if I'm lucky. So perhaps I can think about what I can do in the 20 minutes that I'm waiting as well. Subway uncertainty gives us incredible power over making decisions in the future. Coconut uncertainties we're also quite good at coconut uncertainties. So there are some incidents that are rare and difficult to predict, but we do know that they happen in various places in the world, and we can start to think about what will we do if we are hit by a coconut. The idea of coconut uncertainties, let's say I've been working very hard at the Institute of Analytics and I go on holiday to this beautiful beach and I sit watching the sunrise underneath this coconut tree, and a coconut falls down and hits me on the head. And I have to go to hospital. Ruins my holiday. But it's a thing that happens, not often, but it happens to some people around the world. And we can model in coconut uncertainties. When we know what has happened in various places in the world, we can very easily model those into our predictions and start taking decisions on how we might act in the future if a coconut falls. So there are various ways we can help plan the future. We don't have a magic crystal ball, but we can give you an advantage. Myth number 5, we're working with probability, and most people think they understand probability. It is not easy. It's really difficult, which is why we need to train a little to be able to understand this. Let's say Susan has her DNA was found at the scene of a murder. There's no other evidence, but her DNA was found there, and the police call in an expert who tells them that there is a 1 in 10 million chance of a false match if a person was chosen at random. So we are deciding, did Susan commit the murder or didn't she? And 1 in 10 million, oh my gosh, that sounds awful, doesn't it? She's guilty, she did it. The problem is that we are looking at the probability of a match if the person was innocent, but we shouldn't be looking at that. We shouldn't be focusing too much on the 1 in 10 million chance. What we're really interested in is whether the evidence would occur if the person was innocent. Would the evidence be there at the murder scene if Susan was innocent? That is a different probability statistic. And for that, we need to start bringing in population data. Now then, let's say Susan's in India, and you have a population which is greater than 1 billion. You've got, I think it's around about 1.3 billion. Well, then suddenly our 1 in 10 million chance of a false match isn't looking that great, because in the whole population of India, we would get 130 matches, and we know only one person committed that crime. So the probability of Susan being guilty is now 1 in 130. And we are going to start asking for other information. We want to see, you know, were there any photographs of her at the time? Did she know the person? Was there any other evidence? Because 1 in 130 is not enough to get a conviction. Probability can be very tricky to work with, and we do need specific training to make the right decisions around it. Myth number 6, we can leave this all to the data scientists to handle. This has been tried and it's not been hugely successful, I have to be honest. We are finding it much better when we can all have a little data literacy training. The reason for it is that this is a multidisciplinary skill, and interdisciplinary work is always going to be difficult. Obviously, we need mathematics. I was just explaining, you know, some of the mathematics behind it. Not a lot, but we do need some training to understand the output that these machines are producing. We need a little computer science, not a lot, but enough to be able to understand what limitations the machines are putting on the decisions we can make. Very often people look at a machine doing something very clever and think it can do all the clever things there are, and it can't. You know, it can do that one clever thing. Where these two meet, we have the machine learning algorithms, and we need some professionals who just work in that area. But also, we need to bring in domain knowledge and skills. And this is all of your knowledge of business practice, human resources, education, in my case, medicine, you know, agriculture. There are so many fields where we're trying to apply these technologies. Traditionally, in that intersect, we've always had software development. And in the intersect between domain knowledge and mathematics, we've had university research, traditional research, looking at things like education quantitatively. data analytics sits right there in the middle of all three. And so I would argue that we are none of us going to be experts in all three of these fields, but we should be expert in one and have sufficient knowledge in the other two. Whichever one that is, whichever one you are particularly strong in, you are still going to need to develop just enough knowledge in the other three to be able to be truly valuable in the workforce going forwards. And the reason I say this is because, again, we've been here before. With digital literacy, we knew we had to change because the means of communication changed. It went digital, and communication is so fundamental to the way that we do work. With data literacy, we know we have to change because decision-making is going digital today, and decision-making is so fundamental to organizations. So this is where I believe you and we will be going in the future. We need to become data literate and be prepared to work in human-machine teams. We're going to share more of the decision-making with the machines. We need to be able to supervise those things and make sure we know what decisions they're taking. I am from the Institute of Analytics, so we can help students in lots and lots of ways. If you're interested, if you're inspired by this talk, we've got lots of online training that takes you from zero, if that's where you are, all the way through to chartered data scientist, you know, the highest level of professional status, if that's what you want. Our courses are fantastic. I say they're all typing. 70% of your time, your fingers will be on that keyboard doing things, not thinking things, but doing things. So we don't waste your time. For students, we've got very short courses as well. If you need to revise, do a quick test, remember things that you've forgotten, we've got plenty of little 10-minute revision activities. We have webinars, blogs, forum, we can connect you up to other students. I think we're starting local chapters as well later this year or very early next year. We have membership grades. We can bring you in as a student and we can train you all the way up to get you to become a full member and a full chartered data scientist. We've got various entry points and directions there if you're interested. And then after you graduate, when you're out in that company, you know, we have over 350 courses you can access. If your boss comes to you and says he wants you to do some advanced SQL, we can help you. Advanced SQL, we can help you. We update our content regularly. This time last year, XGBoost algorithm was winning all the competitions as a new algorithm, and today you can learn it today if you want to in our environment, and we can support you as you go forwards in your career. So thank you very much. I think I have about 10-15 minutes for questions if you have any, and I'd be very, very happy to take any questions you have. Thank you so much for welcoming me to your conference this morning. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am. There are two questions. The first question is, what are the common problems that a data analyst encountered during analysis?
Oh, everything. Okay, so let's, yeah, a lot. There are a lot of things that can go wrong. And this is why we ask people to engage a little bit more in doing it themselves, so they understand it's not a magic process. You know, you ask for something and you get a chart out at the end. There's a lot of steps in the middle where things can go wrong. And so again, this is why I think we need to become a little bit more, even if we do it once and then forget about it, experienced in the whole process. So let's start with data collection. We assume often that the data we have collected represents something, but we could always get that wrong. One of the big things we've got wrong is historically, image data sets that have been used to train algorithms. People have assumed they represent the whole population, when in actual fact, when you look at the image data sets, it's just a bunch of white men. And there are no women in there, there are no ethnic minorities. And then these machines, for example, that are trained to recognize white men are then sold to the police in the USA, who use them to try and identify ethnic minority women. And the police officer who's bought the technologies thinks he's got a piece of technology that is 96% correct, which it is with white men, young white men in their 20s or 30s. With ethnic minority women, it's random. It's it's 30% correct. It's shocking. But again, the policeman thinks he's got a definite match because he's been told the technology is 90% accurate in the laboratory. It's not working on the streets with the real population. So the biggest area for error is in data collection. Just you've got the wrong data, you've sampled badly, it doesn't represent what you think it represents. Importing and cleaning is problematic. If you try to take an Excel spreadsheet, it's got a lot of things on there that are machine friendly but not human friendly, that are human friendly but not machine friendly. It has images, extra words, titles, all sorts of things. It has different sheets as well. It's in different sheets. And so if you take an Excel sheet and put it in a pandas data frame in Python, huge mess. And you need to learn how to deal with that, how to import those data correctly. When we want to join data, often the best insights come from, here's one data set, here's another data set. What happens when I bring it together? Can I get new insights? That's an incredibly creative area. Also a little bit tricky. It also creates all sorts of technical problems. It's understanding the limitations of the algorithm you're working with, knowing what problems that particular algorithm is known for. So we have this thing called clustering, where we can take a data set and we can ask the machine to look for patterns in the data set. You know, like this, here is a group of customers who only buy things at the beginning of the month. Here is another group of customers who like to shop online and then purchase after 16 views, you know, or this the machine can put people into groups that we can then use. But again, we've got different algorithms that have different known difficulties. One doesn't work very well when you change the sample. It will change with one, it will work perfectly with one sample. Little bit of a change in the data, you get a completely different result. Others won't work with categorical data. Others won't work with, you know, we've got all sorts of known issues with each of these algorithms. Better to know what those issues are rather than just keep using them and hope everything's okay. And then I think the biggest thing is, what do we do with the result? When you've got the result, what next? So I can say I run a coffee shop, and I've decided to work out the optimal hours to employ people to come into my coffee shop so that I know I've got staff at the busiest times. An algorithm can work that out for me, but I still have physical restrictions in terms of how many tables and chairs I have in the coffee shop. There are human rights laws, there are employment laws. I can't just employ someone for 1 hour and then send them home. You know, you've got to then be able to turn that insight into something you can meaningfully do it with. So I think that gives you an idea of just how many things can go wrong, which is why we need you, the human, the knowledgeable, experienced, understanding human working with the machine, asking the right questions, checking on them, to make sure they are helping us, not making our life worse.
Yeah.
Long answer.
Yeah, there's one more question, Dr. Walsh. What technical tools are used in analysis?
Oh, everything going. I'm not a great Excel user, but I understand many people love it. And if Excel is doing the analysis you want it to do, go for it. Sooner or later, you are going to find the limitations of Excel. So my goddaughter, who is 14 years old, wanted to do a project on the environment for her school. And it was a 2 million row data set she wanted to open up. And of course, she can't open that in Excel. She had to get me to come and help her, show her how to do it in R, because that's where you can learn it. I love SPSS, I do, but again, it's got limitations. There are things it's great for, there are things it can't do. We always encourage, after our members have used the obvious tools like if they are from a more business background, not a coding background, but a more business background, after they've mastered spreadsheets, visualization tools like Tableau is always going to be a good idea, BI systems, we then encourage them to do a little bit of SQL, because very often our business students want to access, they've got this like billion data point data set they want to use, and they want to download it onto their laptop to do the analysis on their laptop. That's not going to work. That really is not going to work. So you need to be incredibly good at filtering the data that you take from that billion data point data set into something small and manageable that you can work with on your laptop if you really insist that's where you want to do it. And then we try to get them into R, because R is a language that was designed for social scientists. It was created for us to support us to be able to do more things. And then if you're very serious, R also has some limitations, and perhaps it's time to think about moving over to Python. Python will do anything. All of the best algorithms will always be available in Python. Go for it, and when it comes to learning coding, you've just got to keep one step. Eventually you'll find you're doing it brilliantly. But I know the first step is always horrible. I do understand. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am. Yeah. Dear participants, this brings us to the end of day 2 technical session. I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to our speaker, Dr. Walsh, for accepting our request to be a part of this international conference, despite her busy schedule. Ma'am, thanks for the deep insights on analytics, telling us about the 6 myths that is there in analytics, also telling us about the career path that we can choose in analytics, relating analytics just in a simple life, like how can you connect with the cost of living? So I must say, let's not wait and let's start learning analytics. And thank you all. And thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chaco, and I hope to see you again.
So.
Dear participants and attendees, welcome back. Now we will start with the valedictory. I would like to request our chief guest, Dr. Mukund Raj, to release the conference proceeding and also request the editorial board to accompany them. Thank you, sir. Now I would like to request Dr. Rupa Trisa to give the best paper awards. Good afternoon to one and all present here. It was indeed congratulating all the participants who are presented in their paper. We'll call out the names of the best paper. Research on digital finance usage in improving the economic sustainability among tribals in India. Evidence from structural equation modeling.
By K. Kathini and Kaito Vichini from Christ University.
Green marketing and green consumers literature review.
By Sindhuja, research scholar, CMS Business School, Jain University.
A study on the impact of digital employee experience on employee retention with a special reference to remote work environment.
By Nabhishri BC, Meghna M. Taj, Mount
Thank you, ma'am. We have two more papers which is presented online among the best paper. Financial literacy amongst women employees in education sector and impact of financial knowledge on long-term investment decision, a study at Hyderabad.
By Ms. Rama, research scholar, and Dr. P. Vishwanathan, Professor, Department of Commerce and Management Studies, Andhra University, Hyderabad.
Price effects associated with changes in constitutions of indices, a systematic review and bibliometric analysis.
By Priyanka Goyal from Punjab University.
Congratulations to all.
Now I would request Dr. Roma Khan to speak a few words about the conference.
Good afternoon, everyone. So at the outset, I'd like to congratulate all the organizing committee members. Each one of you have put a lot of hard effort in making this event, international conference, a grand success. I wish you many more success like this in coming days. After COVID, this is the first conference, offline conference that we are having. And by looking at the response, it's overwhelming response that we have received from across the country. And we have participants from different universities and different colleges in Bangalore. I wish you all the very best. Good luck. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I request Ms. Baisakhi to introduce our chief guest, Dr. Mukund Raj, Project Head, SDGCC, UNDP, India. Thank you.
Very good evening, all the respected delegates, HODs. Good afternoon. Sorry. Okay, I'll start again. A very good afternoon, respected delegates, HODs, my dear students, and all the participants. With immense pleasure, I would like to welcome Dr. Mukund Raj. Dr. Mukund Raj is a technocrat having a career spanning 25 years. His career encompasses a decade of government experience and 13 years of international work experience. He specializes in sustainable development, business process re-engineering, and resource mobilization. He is currently focusing on sustainable development of Karnataka, enhancing GDP, and working with civil society organizations, industry, academia, and private sector in this endeavor. His recent publication includes Green Bonds, Chapter of Economic Survey of Karnataka, 2021-22. One of the core areas of focus is having technology as an enabler to eradicate multidimensional poverty. He's focusing on ESG, smart agriculture, big data analytics, and using virtual reality to provide sustainable skill training for the youth. He was also an information security auditor and was instrumental in helping an organization to be the first real estate platform in Middle East to be certified for ISO 27001. He has won Scotch Award for the Government Department. He was represented in 2018 and the Pan-Arab Awards for the corporate he was associated with in 2010. With immense respect and gratitude, we welcome you, sir.
Very good afternoon to one and all. In fact, sometimes it becomes very difficult to speak after an introduction because the perceived branding and real branding may have a gap. And also this is the last session. So it is, very difficult and challenging to uplift all those tired minds that are waiting for a session. And thank you for accelerating the weekend, Ms. Baisakhi, by telling it's a good evening. So you have really accelerated us. Yes, absolutely. And recently I've observed that the in-person interaction has enhanced and people are looking forward to, in-person interaction than a virtual. At least here we can catch people napping while we are actually speaking. In a virtual interaction, we can't. So let me just, dive in. United Nations has about 40 different bodies like the WHO, World Bank, ILO and so forth, and United Nations Development Program is one of them. I represent UNDP. UNDP is working with the government of Karnataka in various aspects. One is livelihood. We have a very strong activity in our inclusive growth, that is livelihood. And I'm so happy a paper has won, I think, for livelihood. And some of the things that I'm going to chat today has a synergy with some of the winners. And I would love to have them. We would love to request Jain University to have these winners with us, with the government, to have an interaction, because I think our thoughts synergize. This PPT, as it goes through, a lot of winners are in sync with what the government is envisaging. Sustainable development goals is a buzzword now, but basically it is from birth to death. Whatever we do 360 degrees can be, bracketed and bucketed into one goal or the other. A simple thing in home, we are told not to waste food. But if I have to, talk it in a very sustainable way, I'd say, please follow SDG 12, that is responsible consumption and production. So this is basically a branding, but branding is required because that is what we all, adhere to. So basically, these are the 17 goals. I think the 17th goal is what represents here. That's partnership. Thank you. A partnership between stakeholders. There today, the problems are immense, and no goal is independent of the other. Every goal is interrelated. Your workshop, the title is very complex, so I thought let me break it down into 3 parts to simplify my own, talk today. The first one would speak on sustainability. The second one would speak on innovation. And the first again has a 2-part. One is sustainability and one, how are we using data? Because ultimately it is data that we are talking about today, data analytics and the problems and the challenges. Now, the problems are interrelated. I will walk you through, and so solutions require innovation. This is where I think grassroots innovation, we are promoting grassroots innovation. You would understand as I take you through. And data obviously is lifeline. We all talk about data, data and data. Again, what sort of a data, let us understand. This is a real life example. This is what the government is working on. This is what we're working on. This is one of the examples. I've just taken one example of this. Poverty. Now, can anybody tell me what is poverty, please? How are we defining poverty? Anybody? Yes, please. You can just shout out, please.
Sir, lack of basic needs.
Okay. When am I poor? How do you tell I'm poor, or how do you define yourself as poor? Okay. Okay. Is Ambani poor? Yes, if he can't buy what he wants to, he is poor. I mean, that is one definition, but what you rightly said, now the government globally has moved towards multidimensional poverty index. What it means is I may have the money, but I may not have few of these requirements. Somebody in my home is not having enough nutrition, then I am deprived. I am not having a basic asset, like I'm not having a cooking gas in my home, then I am supposed to be poor. If I don't have a bank account, I am poor. So there are various definitions of a multidimensional poverty index. Because globally it is about daily $1.99 is supposed to be poor, but that has been done away with globally. Now Karnataka ranks, I think, 10th in terms of MPI. Kerala is the best in the country at this point of time. So if you look at it, these goals are interrelated. You have nutrition that comes into goal 2. The problem statement is of goal 1. The goal 1 says how many people are poor. If I need to solve goal 1, I need to get into all the other goals to solve goal 1. So what do? I have a methodology. I'm not going to take you through. Your professors will take you through. But basically, data source. As you look at it, data is the biggest problem. Where do I get data for all this? No government data has a proper data. I have data sources from various points of survey. For example, one survey that people know is NFHS. I don't know how many people have heard of NFHS in the audience, as the National Family Health Survey. But again, the challenge is let us say an example, Karnataka. Karnataka is having 7 crore population estimated as of today, 7.2 crore. If we divide it by 4, it's 1.5 crore households. But my sample survey is 26,000. So obviously I have my own reasons based on data analytics, I have my sampling. But can I take those samples back to the grassroots level, or is it representative of a district level? This is one challenge we face. Now we are talking about anemia, for example. Anemia is, I need to alleviate anemia. NFHS says there is about 47.5% pregnant women are anemic. A standard case study for all the students and the stakeholders. Now, there are 10 lakh childbirths in Karnataka every year. This is registered. So assuming, let's eliminate the twins, surrogate, the triplets, etc., etc. So we have about 9.5 or 9.6 lakh mothers. If I go by NFHS, then my anemia, if you say 50% or 47.5%, is 4.3 lakh women are supposed to be anemic, pregnant women, as per the survey. But you go to the government department will tell, I'm sorry, you guys are wrong. I have hardly 47,000 people who are anemic. That's a disparity. It's a 1:10 disparity. You propose a survey to the government, the department says, again, there's a data gap. Why the gap? Because the government only looks into those people who have walked into their own systems. This data excludes all the private data. Many times you go to a doctor who is not a system integrated or tier 2 or tier 3 city. Even in Bangalore, we just go to the nearest doctor who may not be in the system. So one biggest challenge we have when we talk about data is missing data. There's a huge chunk of missing data in the system. Similarly, when we want evidence, now we are trying a project called Data Lake to sort this issue. We are collecting data on anecdotal data from all the sources that we have. For example, there's a news clipping that comes in that ABCD is an event that has happened. We collect that data. We collect survey data. We collect organic data. We collect ration card data. So a particular data set is having 10 different data sets. And then we are collating those data, cleansing data, and I'll run through the challenges later. So this is a humongous effect when you talk about data. Even I think the US is not having such a sophisticated system. So the first challenge when we talk about sustainability is what are we going to do with clean data so that we have a clean output. Karnataka has a database. Karnataka is being cited as the IT capital, so rightly so. Government is having a data source. For example, now Kutumba. Kutumba is a data of all the ration card holders in the state. But again, all means only 5.5 crore households, people. It excludes again 1.5 crore people who are in the city. We don't come under APL, we don't come under BPL, we don't come under various things, we don't go and register in the Kutumba app, so we are all excluded. So the government is having a challenge in decision making here as well. Similarly, when we go to a road infrastructure, again, it is limited. So these are the challenges that we are facing, but yet we are trying to work them around. For example, this is a case study where I want to throw it open to the students. We have 47 lakh metric ton of food excess in Karnataka, growth of vegetables and fruits. If you see, I don't know, people who belong to Kolar, Mulbagal, every other year, alternate year, you have tomatoes and carrots strewn out on the streets. Nobody is there to buy them, free of cost again, even the cow, the cattle don't eat them. It is just plain strewn. The 40 lakh tons of this. Now, how do we process? This is a problem statement that you are working on. I'm just throwing an example. These are GS representation is, one of it is the cold, the cold warehouses, but we have cold chain. We have warehouses in some places. We have cold chain in other places. We don't have an integrated system. Now we are trying to request, we have piloted a food processing in situ so that I am a corporate, I come down to your own field. You have tomatoes, I pulp those tomatoes, give you back the pulp. You can use those pulp, the waste pulp as fertilizer back to your organic again. And I take it. So the farmer saves money on the transportation. But the challenge is the government doesn't permit a mobile processing, food processing unit. So we are working on that, as a central guideline so that it's considered food processing. So these are various steps that we take in terms of sustainability. 17 goals. We are having 195 problems. There are 195 different indicators that are there. 301 is declared, but in India, we're getting into 195. 195 different issues that we are starting in the state of Karnataka. Innovations. What Karnataka has done is, Karnataka is the first state. I'm not going to delve into this. This is just a basic one. Niti Aayog, we have commenced a Niti Aayog in the state. the Chief Minister has announced this about 10 days back. That is called SITK. This is an amalgamation of academia. This is where the participation, where the last line, any other organization that can participate, we want academic institutions to participate with us. We will be sending out invites to academic institutions because everything requires a statistical modeling. So what sort of a statistical modeling? We are having institutions like IAB, ISEC, we would be reaching out to you as well and to various organizations to help out in these things across 10 domains. Agriculture, education, all this clean energy. These are about 10 different domains we are trying to work. This is an innovation, no other state has this. Even NITI Aayog is not having such a huge association of stakeholders. So this is innovation in terms of policy. Innovation in terms of youth engagement. I think this is again one of the award winners had for SHGs. This is for YHGs. This is typically for all our boys who are down there. There is no youth help group at all. This is the first youth help group in the country. Again, this was announced about 2 weeks back. This is with a different model. Unlike the model of the women SHGs, here what we have done is we have tied with entrepreneurs, with organizations who can impart the skill set, technology training. SBI is funding up to 10 lakh rupees as loan. The government is paying 1.5 lakh as margin money. We have franchisees. We have some franchisees who have come forward, like a mobile repair franchisee, electrical, repair franchisee, a food processing franchisee. Spar has come in here. So we envisage to provide livelihood at the local level so that we can stop migration. This is an experiment, the first of the sort in the country. This is an innovation in its kind. About 6,000 SHGs are going to YHGs will be in the first phase, that is the next 7-8 months. 1,000 are already formed. We are commencing the capacity building from next week. So this is an innovation in terms of productivity. Karnataka has one of the higher rates of dropouts, and we have a lower rate of tertiary participation in academic institution because if you look at 9 and 10 data, there are 16.8% of the people drop out in 9 and 10. Reasons are different. Maybe I don't understand maths, I don't have a STEM lab, I don't have employment. There are various, but Karnataka is one of the higher in case of dropouts. What do we do with these kids? We need to mainstream them back into some sort of economic activity, otherwise they will be running here and there around, spoiling their own life and environment. So this is one activity that we have been guiding. And Amazon has come forward to provide us hosting. Each of these YHGs will be having a page of their own. We'll be providing them CRM training. We'll be providing them financial literacy. Actually, one of the award winners was talking about financial literacy. American Indian Foundation, CSO, is providing financial literacy as a CSR activity to these guys. So this is where we would seek help from all those corporates, the institutions who would want to participate. We are open to participation here to help the youth here. The other one is, I think Jain is a part of it, Amrita Samudaya. 750 villages have been identified as the most poorest in the state, as per the MPI. Out of that, 380 are in 2 aspirational districts of Raichur and Yadgir. And we are working there, and the NSS volunteers, I think even your college volunteers would be there. They are doing a wonderful job. One of the innovations that they have done in Mangalore is the Mangalore unit is out of the waste plastic bottles. They've actually built this particular building, a school room from the waste. So what cost about 2.4 lakh is now 60,000. Yeah, so now we are replicating this and similar activities we are. The main objective of Amrita Samudaya is to provide each of the citizen services. For example, I go to a village. Now we are having an MPI survey that's been conducted, or Amrita Samudaya survey that will be conducted. Let's say I have applied for a ration card. I don't have a ration card. I don't have a pension. There are about 40 or 50 attributes which we are calculating. Immediately from the app, it is getting integrated into the government grievance redressal system, and there's a time-bound response to this. So we want at least these 750 villages to be saturated in terms of the government services. There are about 2% of the households don't have Paka houses. There are about 21 lakh homeless in the entire state. So we are trying to identify them. There is funds, but the problem is where to utilize the funds. So by this program, we will try to help the government into channelizing their funds in a very proper way. The other innovation is, this is again, Karnataka is the first to do it, called Avalokana, where I think everyone can view. This is, we talk about transparency in public fund utilization. Each and every rupee of the 2.65 lakh crore budget is being mapped here. You can click and any citizen can view on a public, so that you know where the fund is being spent, who is spending it. This is to the taluk level. So your own geography we can know. And in this, we have actually integrated a SDG dashboard. No other state has done that. We have done a SDG, so we can see the top 5 taluks we don't focus on. We focus on the bottom 5 taluks. Again, we drill down into the various categories as who is low on agriculture, who is low on basic infrastructure. There are about 5 or 6 pillars. So we focus our money. And this time, the state budget, if somebody has already, perused detail, the state budget has identified these taluks. The funding is channelized only on these taluks. For example, education, I'm spending most of my money on 93 taluks. If it is health, I'm spending in 100 taluks. If it is for below 6 years, the Anganwadis and the nutrition, I'm spending in 1 or 2 taluks. Karnataka has 227, you're not spreading it to 227. So we have a focused intervention based on the need, and this is an experiment that it is being piloted. And I think because of the success, the next year it will be extended across various domains. There are about 5 or 6 domains. So the government will start spending only on those domains. This is one more innovation that Karnataka has done. Akanksha, again, a CSR portal, where Karnataka has augmented about 288 crore rupees there on CSR. We don't take money here. We just connect people to the problem statements. Again, this has been appreciated by central government and being across. The challenge is again lack of common terminologies. It uses district, taluk, gram panchayat, village. So these hierarchical structures are creating a problem for us to integrate both central government schemes and state government schemes. So now we are identifying the LGD codes. Unfortunately, we don't have a survey census post 2011. So that is also creating a challenge in terms of the common codes. Districts are increasing. Previous October, it was we have 31 districts. Few months lack of common terminology on what to use, the data gap. Data sources, credible data sources are a challenge. Again, sample size, like I told you, is posing a challenge. Methodology, if you adopt a different methodology than mine, it throws. So each and every one of us is using a different methodology to throw in a different result. Use a 2 quartile, you have a 3 quartile, you use a different formula, it is different. Data sanitization, now we are trying to sanitize the data that we are having from about 18 or 19 data sources. We are actually trying to sanitize them and trying to work out a model with IIITB. We have engaged IIITB as a part of our team there in the government of Karnataka, and we are trying to work out a data lake project. So this is the challenge. Finally, skilling. This is the buzzword again of today's skilling. This is the market as per the India survey report as well, and as per the government report. This is what is the skilling. And now I think a government order should have reached you. The government of Karnataka has made AI and financial literacy mandatory from the last 2 or 3 weeks. Again, this is the first of kind in India, so this is something that we have evangelized with the government. And Dell, yesterday, we had a MOU signed with Dell and AF again for financial literacy, which I think one of the award winners was talking about in the research papers. So this is going to impact 10,000 girls, remote workspace again. Financial literacy is one side and remote work. We are trying to provide remote work to the girls. AF is going to set up remote hubs in the villages, tier 2 and tier 3 cities by providing laptops and other equipment that are required for a period of 6 months to handhold them. Once they are self-sustainable with their salaries, then they can buy their own laptops. This is something that we are, pushing in. This has been launched yesterday. And finally, about 550 government schemes are mapped on the portal down. So anybody who wants to access the government services, the youth do not know. For example, I want to start my own food processing. I don't know what to do. You can just go to Yuvakanaja, type food processing. They get access to all the government schemes that provide food processing units. Anything that they think of. 550 youth schemes are mapped here. We are not mapping all the schemes. only 550 youth team with the contact details or direct link, even the form, suppose they don't need to go to multiple websites to search. You want to apply for a PFFM FME scheme, there's a form hyperlink given. If it's an offline form, a download link is given. So these are things we have not yet launched publicly, but there are soft launches that are going on throughout the state. So with this, I would like to thank you once again on behalf of the Additional Chief Secretary.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your insights on the conference theme, that is innovative practices for sustainable development, business management and analytics. It was very interesting to learn about concepts like multi-dimensional poverty index, data gap, data lake, etc. Thank you for acquainting us with the current drawbacks faced by the government in collecting the authentic data in Karnataka, along with the supporting examples of government schemes and initiatives. Your session was very insightful glimpse of the initiatives taken by the Karnataka government in order to promote development, employment, education, and human welfare to promote sustainable development goals. Thank you so much, sir, for your valuable time, and thank you once again for being part of this conference. It means a lot. Now I would request Professor Sunita BK to felicitate our chief guest. So I would request you to stay back. We need to the best paper awardees want to get a picture. I request the best paper awardees to come up on stage for a good picture. Participants and attendees, please maintain silence.
Where do you want to know whoever?
Thank you so much, sir. I would like to invite Dr. Keshav, conference co-convener, to give the vote of thanks.
Good afternoon. As we come to the end of the 2 days international level on innovative practices for sustainable development, business management, and analytics. On behalf of Center for Management Studies, Jain deemed to be university, it is my responsibility to thank few people who supports and who puts their efforts from day one to day last. First of all, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Dr. Raj Singh, who supported in all administrative approvals for organizing this event in our campus. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. My special thanks to Dr. Harold Patrick, Dean, CMS Business School, who graced this occasion by his welcome address. Thank you, sir. At this juncture, I would like to thank our chief guest, Professor Rishikesha Krishnan, Director and Professor of Strategy at IMB, for kindly accepting our invitation and gracing this inaugural function. Thank you, sir. I thank to our day one keynote speaker, Dr. Amitabh Anand, Associate Professor from Excelia Business School, France, and the technical session speaker, Professor Mario Hack from Erasmus Plus. Thank you very much, sir. I thank to day 2 keynote speakers, Mr. Vijeta Shastri, Executive Director, Dexter Capital, Mr. Anirudhan Vasudevan, Senior Director, HR Replica, and technical session speaker, Dr. Claire Vash, Head of Institute of Analytics. Thank you very much, sir. My special thanks to Dr. Mukund Raj, Project Head, SDGCC, UNDP India, for accepting our request to be a part of this conference without hesitation, despite of your busy schedule, sir. Thank you very much. I would like to thank our beloved champion director, Dr. Dinesh Nilkan, for unconditional support and encouragement always in all times. Thank you very much, sir. I would like to thank to Jayashree ma'am and Chaitra ma'am for their constant guidance and support to shape this conference in a meaningful way. Thank you, ma'am. And I would like to thank a man behind this program, convener Dr. Sachin K. Parapagadar, who planned and executed this program towards dancers. Thank you, Sachin. I would like to thank our co-conveners, Dr. Kiran Mani, Dr. Raghavendra, Professor Baiju J. Noyer, of course, including me. Thank you all. I also acknowledge and thank the support of all head of the departments, program coordinators, teaching and non-teaching staff, including floor staff and attendants of CMS for making this conference successful. An event of this dimension cannot happen overnight. The wheel started rolling months in advance. We have been fortunate enough to back by a team of committed and dedicated student community, especially H&L team, who worked beyond their comfort zone and made this conference in a grand way. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. My special thanks to our program associated partners, Institute of Analytics and Erasmus Plus. Thank you, guys. And my sincere thanks to press and media for conference coverage. My special thanks to session chairs who spent their valuable time to evaluate all the participants from across all the tracks. Thank you very much. Last, but it is very, very important. We would like to acknowledge the efforts and contribution of all enthusiastic participants and attendees from different universities. And thank you very much for your interest towards this conference. Thank you, attendees. On behalf of the organizing committee, once again, thank you very much. Over to MC.
Dear participants and attendees, this brings us to the end of our two-day international conference on innovative practices for sustainable development, business management and analytics in collaboration with Institute of Analytics and Erasmus Plus. I hope your experience at the conference had been very fruitful and productive. We hope the innovative ideas that are shared during the conference would have nourished your mind. On behalf of Center for Management Studies, Jane Dean to be University, we promise you that this may be the end of today's conference, but undoubtedly, this is a new beginning. We assure you to continue this legacy of knowledge sharing in future as well. Before signing off, I request everybody to rise for the national anthem. शुभ आशीष भाग्य विधाता जय जय Participants and faculty members are requested to have lunch before leaving. Thank you everyone for being part of this conference. Have a great evening. Attendance will be taken care for the first years. Please don't worry. And I request all the participants to come on stage for a group photo.
Send from that side. Go.
All participants of the conference, please come on stage for a group photo.
Stage mein lagala ante heli gopi.
And same goes for the organizing committee members. Please come on stage for